Warning, you are about to encounter two wild and weird fantasy football lovers. Please do not feed them football parlays. Their spouses are begging you. Sit back, relax unless you're driving, and be prepared to win your leagues.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to your mom's favorite fantasy football podcast. It's your host, Clay and Christian, once again. And we're coming to you live after a crazy week 1 and 2. We are sorry that we missed week 1. We had a lot of stuff going on in our lives, we kind of just missed our marks for what we wanted to do. And so but we're back now, and we got everything settled up now. So we're kind of just gonna do a week 2 recap, along with maybe some waiver wire priorities that you guys should be setting for tomorrow or tonight for tomorrow morning. So we got a lot of ground to cover, so we're just gonna hop right into it, guys. So the way we have it set up is we're gonna be going matchup by matchup, talking about each team, how they did, how star fantasy players did, and just kind of work our way through the list. Christian, I'm gonna hit you with some facts, okay? I hope that's all good, brother.
Let's do it.
All right, dude. So week 2, we're gonna start off with Thursday night football. We had the Commanders at the Packers, in a game where it really, the score didn't really tell the whole story. The Commanders won the Packers won 27-18. To me, it looked like Daniels just had a rough performance all game until like garbage time when he finally started to do a little better. He scored 2 passing touchdowns, finished 24 of 42 pass attempts for 200 yards, and the ball 7 times for 17 yards. Nothing crazy, kind of more of like a garbage time performer right there. And but I will say Zach Ertz had a solid performance. 6 receptions on 8 targets for 64 yards and a touchdown. Deebo Samuel still looked good. 7 receptions on 8 targets, 44 yards and a touchdown. And Scary Terry, he got his targets. He got 9 looks, but he only finished with 5 receptions for 48 yards. Christian, let me ask you real quick. Are you worried about Scary Terry's performance over week 1 and 2? It's kind of not what we've thought it's going to be. If you had a panic meter of 1 to 10, where would you place him?
For me, I guess it's a great question. Even though I do think I'll probably hit you with a different panic meter on a different person here pretty soon to see what your thoughts are. I think that the Washington offense has the ability to be extremely explosive, probably as do you. So originally I wasn't too panicked even after these first few games. But I think the bigger thing is Deebo has a legit role in this offense, right? And we're seeing we're seeing the touchdown equity go to Deebo Samuel early, so it looks like that he's like a favorite target within the red zone, which makes sense because he has always been that wherever he's been. So I think when you mix in Deebo's production and it doesn't seem to be slowing down just yet, I think when you mix in that maybe Daniels is going to take a slight step back this year for a variety of reasons. Nonetheless, that something we're just discovering in which he's going through looks like some sort of a knee injury, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if Daniels is going through that knee injury, you have Scary Terry yet again probably going to have to work with a different quarterback, and Deebo Samuel's in production mode. Yeah, I would probably say that panic meter is starting to pick up a little bit, but I would say my panic meter on him is probably close to like a 6.5. Not as maybe high as other people, just because we've seen it in years past to where, again, Scary Terry has kind of overcome plenty of obstacles before in the past in the fantasy football world and always
Right.
seemingly touches 1,000 yards receiving, even if he'd probably do it again, even if he did it all in one game this year. Wouldn't surprise me. It's just kind of like, it's just what he does. He finds a way to get it done. So,
Exactly.
yeah, I don't,
He's similar to Mike Evans, where these guys are always going to finish with 1,000 yards, no matter who's throwing to them. They just get the job done. I know exactly what you mean.
but yeah, no, that's kind of my thoughts on him. What about for yourself? And then I got another name here in a second.
I guess I'm not. I agree with you. I'm not super worried. It's definitely not the production that I would have hoped for, but it was kind of a rough offseason for him. And then obviously the team's acquisition of Deebo Samuel kind of, it makes it like a 1-2 punch, but sometimes, when you were the 1A and now you're having to split touches and Zach Ertz looking as good as he's looking too, and Daniels is looking for him, Yeah, I'm not super worried, but it is something that, you guys probably drafted him what, end of the 4th, maybe early 5th. So that's just a high draft pick that's not producing for you right now. I'm pretty sure people were drafting Scary Terry well before Debo Samuel, at least by like a round or two. And so I think that's the only reason that there would be somewhat of a panic meter. Who were you worried or had a panic meter for me?
Yeah, so I've got I don't know, man. I've got quite a bit of shares of him in a couple of leagues, and that is Big Bill.
Big
Uh,
Bill, yes.
I know he's young. You see the explosiveness, like whenever he's on the field, it looks good, but they're just not giving him the ball. And yeah, we're probably going to talk about Austin Eckler's out.
Yes.
Like, sure, going forward, that should increase his workload. But I think Chris Rodriguez is about to be healthy again. So I'm just afraid we're going to watch the next Commanders game. I'm going to be all in on Big Bill, say this is his week. And then Chris Rodriguez is going to have 15 carries or just something crazy
No,
like that, you know?
I agree. I do think a panic meter on Big Bill, I think it's actually a little bit less than Scary Terry. I would say it's around a 5 because obviously if Eckler didn't get injured, I think it would be higher. But Eckler unfortunately did get injured, and it looks like it could be one of those career-ending injuries just given his age and everything. So that was really sad to see. You could tell in his face that, like, man, I hope it's not what I think it is, but unfortunately, it looks that way. But Big Bill, I think this last game he was kind of just game scripted out of it. Only had 4 carries for 17 yards. That game was, like I said earlier, a lot of the points happened more in the garbage time, fourth quarter. Um, but I think he should get a bigger workload next week for sure.
Okay. And just a quick question. Are you buying low on either of them?
Oh, I would hope that whoever I'm buying low from maybe is worried about Big Bill because I would definitely be like maybe sending some offers for him, just to kind of kick the tires, see what I could get, knowing that he could be this team's next running back one. Uh, so I would maybe hope that my opponents, my other league mates are kind of worried, and so I could maybe capitalize on that. But if they know ball, and most of them do in this league, I think I might be out of luck on that one. But you have him in this league, correct?
Yeah, I have Big Bill in our league,
See,
right?
so that's what I'm saying. Christian knows ball, so he's not gonna
You'd
look
have
to trade him.
you'd have to give me your number one draft pick for
See,
him.
Christian always asks for too much, but
Yeah.
no surprise there. We'll move on to the Packers right here, and man, I gotta say they look scary. Just from like a non-fantasy standpoint, more of just like a real life football. They look like a team who could be competing for a Super Bowl again this year. They look good on offense. They look good on defense. I mean, Jordan Love, he has a wide receiver core that is insanely deep, and then has a tight end like Tucker Kraft. Uh, all these guys, they just look insane. Now we do know that Reed suffered a collarbone injury on a almost touchdown pass that would have been nice to at least finish the game with a touchdown fantasy wise. But we do hope that Reed heals up quickly. The good news for Love is he's got plenty of other guys. He still has Tucker Kraft. He still has Romeo Dobbs, Wicks, Matthew Golden, the rookie that they drafted. I mean, this team, this wide receiver room is still completely packed. So Jordan Love finished 19 for 31 attempts, 292 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 carries for 12 yards. And Josh Jacobs also got a ton of work. He had like 13 carries for 84 yards and a touchdown. So, I mean, they're just getting the work done all over the place. I mean, on the ground, in the air, Tucker Kraft stealing the show. Six receptions on 7 targets for 124 yards and a touchdown. I mean, this team looks good. So I wish I maybe had more of uh Packers offensive players, or at least Jordan Love on my fantasy team with the way they look. But what do you think, Christian?
Yeah, I look at the Packers and I kind of see the same thing. I don't want it to be true, right? So I keep looking at I'm waiting for them to implode, waiting for Jordan Love to just wake up and realize that he's not great. But maybe but maybe he is, right? Josh Jacobs is just old reliable, nothing special, but just there when they need him, right? So I do think that across the board, when it comes to from a like a football perspective, we're looking at a pretty productive team. The only weird thing is that I don't know if I would like want to hang on to any wide receivers unless I'm gonna maybe plug them in as a flex spot, just because we don't know because there's so many of them. With the exception of Tucker Craft, I mean, the Tucker Craft truthsayers were finally right this year,
They
right?
were right.
And they're right in a big way. So if you got Tucker Craft, you probably drafted him super late. Good on you because you, I think, are dealing with tight end number one right now, right?
Yeah.
In terms of fantasy production.
That's an easy
So
tight end 1 week, especially with Brock Bowers, not 100%.
right. So I don't know. I like the team. I think from a football perspective, if you have Josh Jacobs, Jordan Love, or Tucker Kraft, you're in a great position. I don't know, even with some of the injuries recently at wide receiver, if I'm buying any of the other wide receivers. Matthew Golden was returning punts the other day, so it's like maybe he wasn't, I don't know, everything that he was supposed to be. I don't know. Man, he's still young, so maybe he comes out, right? But I'm not buying any of their wide receivers, and I'm just hanging on to them if I've got them.
For sure. They're kind of like a stash, and like now you're just waiting to see because I think last year Reed had kind of established himself as maybe the most one wide receiver one that they have. And so now that spot is open. So we kind of got to see who's gonna maybe take the step up to fill that role. But we'll go ahead and jump into the next game here. We got Jags at the Bengals. That game was crazy. That game was a fight till the end. The Bengals ended up holding off the Jags 31-27.
Mhm.
But a big injury occurred during this game. Joe Burrow going down early in the second quarter. Got diagnosed with turf toe. He's going to be out for 3 months.
Yikes.
And that's not looking good if you are a Burrow holder. But the good news is if you're a Jamar Chase holder or a T. Higgins holder, is Jake Browning. He's been in this position before where he steps in for this team and he knows these guys. He knows how to play. Browning coming in when he did and still finishing the game as well as he did is insane. He did have 3 interceptions, but 21 for 32 attempts, 241 yards in the air, 2 touchdowns. I mean, what more can you ask from your backup to lead your team to a victory and still keep this team's morale high? I think, and he had a rushing touchdown at the end of the game that won on they won on a 92-yard go ahead drive. I mean that's incredible. I don't know what they're paying Jake Browning, but they might need to relook at that contract if it's expiring soon. Uh, Jamar Chase finished with crazy numbers. If you had Jamar Chase on this on your team, you might have won if this was a normal week. But we know that we had a lot of other crazy wide receivers as well. But Jamar Chase, 14 receptions, 165 yards, 1 touchdown. Just doing Jamar Chase things. T. Higgins, 3 receptions for 56 yards and a touchdown. Um, I would say the only thing with this team is I was very high on Chase Brown, and now back-to-back weeks, he's kind of looked like he struggled, even though he's getting a ton of work, 16 carries for 47 yards, 2 receptions for 18. So not a whole lot out of Chase Brown there. I know he scored last week, but not typically what you want to see. But with like kind of what we were saying was like this game, the way it was going is it was definitely going to be a battle through the air. But what are your thoughts on Burrow and Browning and the outlook of this Bengals team? Are you nervous going into week 3? Are you more confident knowing that Browning still throws to these guys and looks good doing it? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it depends on what type of league you're in, right? But I think for the most part, if for your standard redraft, I would be concerned, right? For mainly the idea of if the Bengals start to implode, which they might, maybe they start to actually relook at contracts this year. Because what they're doing right now, I saw somebody compare this recently, was what was happening to Andrew Luck back when he decided to retire early, right? And it's like, okay, Joe Burrow, for how great he is, should not be injured every other season, is what it feels like, right? So I don't know. That scares me a little bit. I think if I have shares of Jamar Chase, I'm scared just because if we look at the games that Browning played in 2023, I think the finishes for Jamar Chase were wide receiver 33, 6, 56, 34, 54, and 57.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
a wide range right there.
yeah, only one time being a wide receiver 1 in that time period. But if you are if you're like questioning, maybe you're in a super flex, or even if you're not in a super flex, even if you're in a standard league, 10-person league, Jake Browning probably does have a little bit of fantasy production in him, because even though his wide receivers are question marks in terms of who is he going to target in a given week, is Jamar Chase going to be the same explosiveness player that he is with Burr on the field? Um, if you look at Browning's production, I think in the time period that he started, and at least most recently in 2023, he finishes QB1 with the exception of 2 times when he faced Pittsburgh, uh, in Pittsburgh and then at home. So, and at the time, Pittsburgh's defense was way more formidable than they are currently, right? So that was pretty impressive to those be your only finishes outside of being QB1 territory. So I actually think there's a lot of hope if you need quarterback help that Jake Browning has showed himself to be a fantasy producer. But I don't know. If you're in a redraft league, I might start considering selling some of my other players before we see what it looks like. That's just me though.
Like,
Right.
kind of get out now before this team goes any further. Just because now there's a whole bunch of question marks. It's not as, and it wasn't looking great week 1, and then we jump into week 2 and they're struggling with the Jags at home. It's very concerning. But yeah, I agree. Um,
It's almost like you should trade me Chase Brown for Big Bill. It's like, I'll just take him off your hands.
just take him off, man.
I'll
Oh,
just take him off
if
your
we
hands,
weren't in a
dude.
dynasty, I would consider it. But unfortunately, yeah, Chase Brown's gonna be on my team for
Hmm.
the foreseeable future. But jumping on the other side of the ball, Trevor Lawrence actually looked pretty good, fantasy wise. 42 attempts, 24 completions, had 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Solid fantasy performance. Travis Etienne, though, here we go. Travis Etienne, 14 carries for 71 yards. He had 2 receptions for 18 yards and a touchdown. And the rookie Tutin, I don't know if I'm saying it right, but he was eating into Etienne's workload. He had 8 carries for 42 yards, 2 receptions for 32 yards, and a touchdown. So we see the split. It's almost Etienne had about six more touches, and he had about one play that equated to about a 30-yard rush. I think that was his longest rush. So you take that away from the equation. These guys are neck and neck for what they're kind of producing. This is going to be an interesting backfield that also just lost Tank Bixby. So this split right here, we could see Tutin kind of eating into Etienne's time more. What do you think about anyone who's like an Etienne holder right now, Christian?
Yeah, if I'm an ETN holder, I'm selling hard and I'm selling fast. I mean, there was and he looks great. That's the sad part about it. I wish they would trade him to another team that needs him, like the Cowboys. That'd be fantastic. But because he does look like the ETN of old.
Yeah.
We were hearing though, and I'm going to mispronounce his name too, Tootin. I'm going to call him Tootin, right? For even prior to the season starting, that he may have a role, right? There was conversations about that even prior to the season that he may eat into it. You mentioned it. They trade away Bigsby. Okay, so now he's up to the number 2 instead of the number
Right.
3, and we're seeing the split start to take place even in the receiving game. So where you would have thought that maybe Travis Etienne has a little bit more insecurity because he is a pretty good receiving back. He's been known to be a really good receiving back.
Mm-hmm.
But I would be a little bit concerned, especially because Tootin at this stage in his career just has a little bit more explosiveness. I mean, if you want the juice, which the Jaguars are going to want because they don't look terrible this season, looks like they actually might be competitive. Yeah, you're going to want all the juice you can find. So I would be looking to trade Travis Etienne specifically to me. But but yeah, no, I'm trading him away.
Yeah, I think you made an important point because Etienne looks like Etienne of old. And it's sad that he also could get beat out just because of, the way Tootin looks. So it's going to be interesting. I think Tootin holders should definitely hold. You could be looking at RB1 by the end of the season, especially if someone suffers an injury. I mean, both of these guys, we're going to see what happens with them. And then just another, it's sad because now that I am a new Brian Thomas Jr. holder, very, very quiet day for him and Travis Hunter. Brian Thomas
Mhm.
Jr., he did have 12 targets, but 4 receptions for 49 yards. Travis Hunter, 3 receptions on 6 targets for 22 yards. I will say, Brian Thomas Jr., he's going to bounce back. We've seen what he can do. I'm not worried. That might be a little bit of, I don't know how I'm trying to say this. I'm a holder, so I am scared, but I'm gonna try my best to remain positive. I see Christian giving me the eyes, but when it comes to Travis Hunter, if you're in a league that has that independent defensive player position, he is still 100% viable in that role because he's still getting the offensive work. He's still getting a couple solo tackles on defense. So I think no matter what, you can at least plug him in on that spot if you're in one of those leagues. If you are just in a regular standard league where he's playing just the wide receiver role, he would definitely be on my bench for the foreseeable future, just because he is not getting a whole lot of work. We haven't really seen him have any explosive plays. I'm gonna hold off and I would maybe put him on my bench for maybe one of my other guys right now if I was a holder. So that's what I would have to say about that. Christian, it looks like you had something to say about Brian Thomas Jr. possibly.
Yeah, no, I have a share of Brian Thomas Jr. I was lucky enough to draft him in round 2 in a different redraft league of mine, and, that is not paying off, right?
Yeah.
And
Because
I actually,
you're taking him in the first round, you're or early second, if he maybe falls. I mean, he's supposed to be your wide receiver one, and not looking too great.
it's not looking too great, and I'll say this too, if you don't look good against Carolina and Cincinnati, I don't know who you look good against. And that's probably the most concerning part for me as somebody who holds him in one fantasy league. And I am pretty concerned, and I don't want to necessarily shoot his value down because I'm probably going to be looked to unload him. Actually, I'm I'm not so sure he comes back. It turns out that he's dealing with maybe a little bit of an injury. Maybe
Right,
we don't
right.
know. We
Hmm.
don't know, right? So it hasn't been reported the severity of it. Uh, Even though Travis Hunter, yes, has not necessarily put up the crazy numbers as wide receiver yet. Game 1 against Carolina, 8 targets, 6 receptions, 33 yards, not fantastic, so he was kind of like an underneath option there. 6 targets in the second game, he only caught 3 balls, so it looks a lot worse against Cincinnati. But Trevor Lawrence is looking for him, and they're
Oh
game
yeah.
planning him in there, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, you can look at the targets for Brian Thompson and also say, like, hey, there's opportunity because they're just not connecting 100%. But this feels like a year where I don't know if it's just the new offensive system that Trevor Lawrence is a part of. They're not funneling targets to just one player, right?
Right.
And I think the even more concerning part that I'll kind of leave you with, because this was going to be something that I was really going to mention, was Brian Thomas, just because I do have some ownership of him. Was he really had major production when Mac Jones was filling in for Trevor Lawrence, and I think that's the scariest part about him is we haven't even seen a true connection between him and Trevor Lawrence before,
Hmm.
so he was kind of a little bit of a risk, right? I don't
Right.
know. I'm hopeful he comes back because I don't. Even though I said earlier that I think I might try to unload him, he's not one of my immediate sells. So I'm definitely, but I'm flirting with the idea just because you took him so high, you don't want to have to exchange him for a fourth or fifth round pick, right? Is not what you want
Exactly.
to have to do, and that's what
Exactly.
that's what you would have to give him up for at this point, right? Because he is quite a bit of risk, I think. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you're definitely banking on his name and the stuff that he did last year at this point. If you were using him as trade bait, like you're gonna tell the guy, like, look what he did last year. Dude was amazing. Dude was incredible. I think the best bet of like what Christian's saying, if you're like flirting with the option of trading him, depending if you're in a redraft or dynasty, you're definitely not trying to look at losing too much value. I would maybe, I don't know, kick the tires on maybe like a wide receiver swap. Maybe Emeka Buka could be someone that you could maybe look for, who looks good. you could say like I'll take the risk on him. You can have someone who we know can be a wide receiver 1, and maybe do a little wide receiver swap there. But that would be at the very, very least. For me, I'm going to hold on to him and just hope that he does get through this wrist injury and starts to slowly develop a better relationship with Trevor Lawrence. Last couple notable performances, Parker Washington, 5 for 5 receptions on 79 yards, and Dynamic Brown. I forgot they traded for him and have him now. 5 receptions on 7 targets for 57 yards and a touchdown. Good day for everyone else. Bad day if you had Brian Thomas Jr. or Travis Hunter. But we will jump into probably, I don't know, maybe my bias is showing again, the most exciting game of the week. We got the Dallas Cowboys at home taking on the Giants. And you know what? I'm going to come off and say this. Yeah, sure, we won the game 40-37 overtime, but I was never worried. You know what? Take that as you will, Giants fans, if you're listening. I was never worried. I believe in our boys. I was never scared. I believe in Aubrey. I believe in Dak, CD, all those boys. Defense, that's a different story. But, this is what we talked about. Christian and I were preaching this from the beginning. You want to have these Dallas Cowboys on your team because they have to perform offensively. If they don't perform offensively, they are not going to stay in these games. And they have the talent on offense to do this. So let's break it down. Let's look at what we did. Dak Prescott, 52 attempts. This man was throwing all game. 38 completions for 361 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. We won't talk about it. He also had a massive 14-yard run that put us into overtime, put us in a good position to tie it up. And let's talk about I'll come back to the running backs. I just want to talk about Dak Prescott and the wide receivers. CeeDee Lamb, another dominant performance, 9 for 11, 112 yards. Only had 1 bad drop, much better than last week. And then George Pickens, he's on the map now, 5 for 9, 68 yards and 1 touchdown. He is drawing so much attention. He is getting these teams to bait on him defensively. Like he's already, I think they said he's already baited 5 defensive PIs. I mean, he's so big. He's such a big target. I mean, they have to pull on him. They have to jump on him, or he's gonna make him look silly. And even Jake Ferguson, right? 91 yard, or sorry, wait, I have that messed up. He had 9 receptions, I think. I had it mixed up. For 78 yards, which was really solid. And Turpin, he hit 4 for 4 for 47 yards and a touchdown before he got injured. So everyone was eating in the wide receiver core and the tight end core. And then Brandon Aubrey. We don't ever talk about kickers, but I feel like we got to talk about our kicker. 4 for 4, Mr. Automatic, made all his extra points, hit a 64-yard bomb to tie it. I mean, this team is gonna get you your fantasy points. So we really hope that you guys listen to us and got some Cowboys on your team. Christian, take it away. What do you think?
So Cowboys are going to win the Super Bowl, right? Just got to say that again. Got to squeeze it in there. Just to give a couple of players that he's outscoring so far through week 2 in fantasy production. He's outscoring Spencer Rattler, Bucky Irving, Troy Franklin, Kyler Murray, Devontae Adams, Eric Henry, Garrett Wilson, Jawan Johnson, Jalen Warren, Matthew Stafford, and Keon Coleman. So essentially, he is outperforming everybody that you've drafted, almost everybody you've drafted in the 4th round or later, and a couple of people you drafted probably sooner. Aubrey should probably get paid pretty soon. Hopefully, Jerry doesn't turn that into a mess, because I was reading something to where if the Cowboys started on the whatever it was 35 every possession, they would only have to gain 25 yards to score points every single time, right? So Mr. Automatic, it's crazy. But as far as the other stuff with the Cowboys, Clay and I we're screaming from the mountaintops about him. CeeDee Lamb, we were begging people to draft him. Dak Prescott, we were begging people to draft him late. It's producing so far through week 2. I think the big surprise is Williams. Fantasy production for Williams has been fantastic, right? Falling into the end zone. Even though I think if you go back to some of our earlier episodes, we mentioned that he could be that person because the Cowboys are moving the ball so much that just falls in the end zone a couple of times a game, which he's doing. And he's actually he looks pretty effective on the ground too. Yeah, the Cowboys, nothing surprised there, but what about this game from Neighbors, man? After
Oh my
kind of being
God.
a healthy scratch, 167 receiving yards, 2
That's what I meant
touchdowns.
earlier. You probably would have won your week if you had Jamar Chase, but if you're playing against Malik Neighbors, you're getting matched. You're getting matched. This
Right.
week was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, jumping on the other side of the ball here, Mr. Russell Wilson, Mr. Danger Russ, still doing
Wow.
it. Still doing it, especially to the boys.
Terrible.
Terrible. 41 attempts, 30 completions, 450 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. I will say that interception was awful. It was just like a floater. Wilson had all the time in the world to set up to pick that. So I'm not really sure what he was looking at there, but he even got a little bit down on the ground, 23 yards rushing. But yeah, Malik Neighbors, man, 9 receptions, 167 yards, 2 touchdowns on a 48-yard moonshot. I mean, that ball was in the air forever, and he smoked our secondary. So it looks like after week 1 struggles, Russell Wilson has finally realized, hey, I just got to chunk it up, and Malik Neighbors will get it. And if Malik Neighbors doesn't get it, Wan'Dale Robinson will get it, because Wan'Dale Robinson finished with 8 receptions for 142 yards and a touchdown. So both those guys absolutely creamed our secondary. Honestly, at this point now, anyone who the Cowboys play, go ahead and start their wide receivers. Just start them, because this is what's going to happen all season. Unfortunately, the Cowboys secondary is going to get burnt. The defense finally made a big pickup getting Jadeveon Clowney, so hopefully that helps put some pressure on these quarterbacks. But with the way it's looking, I mean, we're going to get scored on a lot too. Go ahead and drop the Dallas Cowboys defense if you have them as well. And Cam Scatterboo coming alive and taking over and outpacing Tyrone Tracy. We have to talk about this because this is important too. Cam Scatterboo, 11 carries for 45 yards and a touchdown, 2 catches for 14 yards, outpaced Tracy on 5 carries for 15 yards and 4 catches. He did get 4 catches and 36 yards, so he was getting a little bit of the receiving work. But what do you think about Cam Scatterboo coming in and outpacing Tracy there?
Yeah, I'm trying to buy where I can Scatterboo, right? I think that it's going to be difficult because anybody who has them knows what they got at this point. The time to buy was probably last week, but everybody, including myself, was a little bit nervous probably to do that just because we didn't know how long the favor was going to go the opposite direction when it came to Scatterboo, right? But yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, he's the player to be holding on to right now, or to try to be picking up, just because it looks like they're going to start trusting him a little bit more moving forward, especially if they keep losing. What's the point of not figuring out what you have, right? So yeah, if you have him, start him, and if you don't, go try to get him,
Go
right?
try to go try to get him. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting split because I think a lot of people were taking Tyron Tracy maybe around like the 7th or 8th round. They were looking at him. So, and Cam Scatterboo, I think, was going more in like the 10th or 11th. Unless you were in a dynasty, you're probably drafting a little bit different. But Tyron Tracy was definitely getting drafted before Cam Scatterboo, just because there was that uncertainty if he was going to find a role and stuff like that. But now that we know Cam Scatterboo, I mean, if you knew him in college, boy was a freak. So, well, let's go ahead and jump into this next game, which was just an absolute snot beating. Neil, I hope you're listening. Bears getting absolutely embarrassed at the Lions, 52-21. Just a smackdown. Lions showing the Bears that you guys can keep Ben Johnson. We don't even remember him. Like, we don't even need him at all. Jared Goff, look at these numbers. 28 passing attempts, 28 passing attempts on 23 completions, 334 yards and 5 touchdowns. Jared Goff,
Crazy.
incredible performance. And here's another guy who was probably going to win your week if he wasn't playing Neighbors, if he wasn't playing Jamar Chase. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 9 receptions, 115 yards, and 3 touchdowns. I mean, this game was a touchdown parade. And then you got Jamison Williams on the other side. He doesn't need a lot of touches. He just needs 2 to get 108 yards and a touchdown. These performances were wild. But unfortunately, there was not a lot of love to be spread around. Laporta finished, 3 receptions for 26 yards. The other tight end, Brock Wright, ended up getting the touchdown. So that was a bit tough for him, or that kind of maybe saved him. And then Tesla, he actually had a nasty grab for about 29 yards. It was just like one nasty snag. But I only bring him up because this is someone who, if Amon-Ra St. Brown goes down, if Jameson Williams goes down, Tesla is gonna be someone who steps in and fills that role almost immediately. I like this guy. I think you should maybe start to maybe trade for him now if you can. He's a great hold if you already have him. I like Tesla a lot, so he's just someone that he fits this offense well. And then Jahmyr Gibbs and Montgomery doing just another vintage performance. Gibbs 12 carries, 94 yards and a touchdown, 3 catches. Monty 11 carries, 57 yards and a touchdown. Also had one catch. These guys just split the backfield almost down the middle, and they both performed so well. I mean, this Lions team showing us like they don't need Ben Johnson at all. They're going to be just fine. So I think that answered a lot of questions for the team, built a lot of confidence. So what do you think about these Lions players and their fantasy output?
Yeah, Jared Goff at home is a different beast, right? So kind of not surprised with the performance. They themselves got embarrassed in last week, so you would expect them, especially the way that Coach Campbell typically tries to find motivation anywhere. Hey, look at the guy across from you, right? He wanted to coach you. He wanted to coach against you guys 2 times a year, right, or whatever it's going to be. So I'm sure they weren't lacking motivation, and I'm sure they made it personal, even if they don't really think it's personal. They definitely made it personal. But here's I mean, and I don't feel bad saying this either, Neil. But
Say it.
the Bears are just terrible.
They're terrible.
Williams, I mean, come on. I think I'm not going to be shocked when Ben Johnson moves on from him. Like maybe 2 more games. We'll see how long the leash is. But there's no way that he's going to move forward with Williams through the whole season. I don't think. He just can't produce in what Ben Johnson's trying to accomplish in this offense.
Tell the listeners what you texted us about Ben Johnson, what you saw during the game.
So about Ben Johnson or Caleb Williams or both of them?
Caleb, you texted us that I don't know if you remember, but Christian texted us and said, "Look at Ben Johnson's face. He doesn't like Caleb Williams. I mean, you can tell they're just not it right now.
No, they're not a good fit. And I think a part of it is Caleb Williams is everything that, if you think about what Ben Johnson's system requires, it requires you to be boring. And Caleb Williams has a lot of talent, but he's not used to being boring and taking the open throws, right? And you see it. You see him lose composure as the game goes on because he doesn't want to do it. He wants to scramble around and do his best version of Patrick Mahomes, which he can't. Right. So I don't know. I know your question was about the Lions. I'm looking at this Lions team and I'm like, cool. It was a great week for fantasy production. I actually might be looking to sell high a little bit on some of these players just because.
Who are you looking to sell high on?
Again, redraft purposes, dynasty totally different. Redraft, I mean, I don't know if Amon-Ra has a similar game to this, just because, like you mentioned, Tesla had an amazing catch. He had an amazing catch last week. Maybe it's just coach speak, but Campbell came out right afterwards and said, "Hey, we're going to give him more opportunities." Are those opportunities going to come away from JMO? I don't think so, because JMO is the person that is taking the air out of the defense. That's not necessarily Tesla's game. So where do they come from? There's not a lot of targets that are going to a player that's going to get similar targets other than Amon-Ra. And again, do I think that they're going to put 52 points up against regular teams? No, they're not. Right. And again, I loved seeing the beatdown. I love seeing the revenge game. I love seeing that, hey, we don't need you, Ben Johnson, because they proved it at least against the Bears. They didn't. Mm-hmm. But when they play somebody who's actually deserving to be in the NFL currently, like an organization, they're gonna have a tougher time. Like I just don't think that, even though they'll get better, sure, I don't think you're going to see this consistency. Again, 52 points, and Amon-Ra only had 115 yards receiving. Yes, he had 3 touchdowns, but if he doesn't get that touchdown equity, and we know that on a week-to-week that can change, 9 receptions on 115 yards, still a great fantasy game, but a game when you put up 52 points, you would expect your number one to do a little bit better, right?
Right.
Especially when he's a true number one. So I don't know. I maybe I'm wrong in that. Hopefully I am because I know a lot of people love holding on to Lions players. I specifically really like Jamar Gibbs, liked him for a long time, but I might be selling after this game just because of how terrible they looked in week one.
Yeah, you could definitely fish, kind of dangle these guys' names and kind of see like maybe like what's out there, You could definitely look to maybe not necessarily upgrade, but find someone that's going to be a little bit more consistent. So I definitely see what Christian's saying.
Let me ask you this, Clay. Just to put it in perspective, if you had Amon-Ra St. Brown and you could go out and get, let's just call it CeeDee Lamb, are you keeping St. Brown or are you trading for CeeDee Lamb?
I'm trading for CeeDee Lamb immediately. I would have already have put that trade request in, and that's
Okay.
just because I see what you're saying. I see where you're coming from. This team to me almost has too many mouths to feed, whereas the Dallas Cowboys, CeeDee Lamb is the guy, and George Pickens is also the guy, but he's the second guy, and we all know that. And Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, they get along so well, at least on the field. I would rather take my shot, and I think CeeDee Lamb is going to be that more consistent option. So yeah, if someone is down to do that, because both those guys were drafted in the first round, both those guys had massive weeks, um, and Amon-Ra did have technically the better fantasy week, I would definitely maybe shoot your shot on that and just kind of see like if that's what someone would like to do. I think that's a great guy that you could probably trade for him.
I got two more for you real quick, just quick ones. Amon-Ra for
Yeah, yeah.
Neighbors. What do you think about Amon-Ra for Neighbors?
Ooh. In a dynasty, I don't think you get that done. But in a redraft, I don't see why the other person would say no.
What would you
But then
do?
it kind of
If you had
goes,
if you had Amon-Ra, would you trade him for Neighbors or would you keep?
oh, it's just tough because kind of goes with how much do you trust Russell Wilson, and if they go to Jackson Dart, what happens then?
That's true.
You know,
Yeah,
at
absolutely.
least Russell's gonna sling it.
Yep.
Um, oh gosh, that's tough. That one I would maybe in a dynasty I would send the offer. In a redraft, I would probably hold Amon-Ra just
Okay.
because, like you said, we're just speculating. There's no indication that any of this is going to happen, but we are
Right.
just letting y'all know that these are things that could happen that have happened before in the past that we've seen. So,
Right.
who was the other one?
I was gonna say him or Puka.
Oh, that's another boy that I can't wait to talk about either. Puka has gone out and impressed me even more than he already has. Oh gosh, that's another tough one. I think maybe. Oh man, they're almost equal in my head. That one I would lean maybe more Amon-Ra, and that has nothing to do with Puka. It's just Matthew Stafford. We already know he had a shoulder injury coming into the season, and if Matthew Stafford's not there, I forget. I don't even know who their backup is. Is it Stetson Bennett? I don't even know who their backup is, and that would make me worried that
No,
Puka doesn't
Garoppolo.
get as much workload as it is.
I think
Let me
it's
look it up
Jimmy.
real quick. It's Jimmy. Okay. Gosh. No, I think both of those I'm staying with Amon-Ra in a uh but it's like this close.
Yeah,
It's
it's
like
close,
I mean
right? They're
we're
fair trades.
yeah, we're splitting hairs with
It's
those guys. I
preference,
mean,
I think, at
it's
that
almost
point.
you would almost kind of catch your league mates off by trading such a heavy name and they'd be
Mm-hmm.
like, "What are you doing?" So it
Right.
you could definitely maybe kind of Christian is all about trading and always trying to improve his team. So that's one of those that you could maybe catch that person off guard and being like, "Oh my god, yeah, this guy had more points than this guy, so maybe I would just do that." And so yeah, you could definitely try to get away with it. You're not screwing anyone. It's not a bad trade by any means. It's just we're just kind of speculating, the future of the season and the future of these teams. But we'll jump into the other side of the ball real quick because honestly, there's not a whole lot of highlights. Caleb Williams, we've already kind of talked about it. He didn't do
Yuck.
terrible for fantasy. He didn't do terrible for fantasy, but he did, finish with 207 yards, 2 touchdowns, 5 carries for 27 yards. So not like the worst performance by any means. But there was a bright spot in this offense, and that his name is Roma Dunze. How about Roma Dunze with 7 receptions for 128 yards and 2 touchdowns? Also, DeAndre Swift looking like DeAndre Swift of old, off of 12 carries, had 63 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 receptions. So those guys looked pretty solid, even though this game was an absolute beatdown. And then it's another rough performance for DJ Moore. He had 5 catches, 46 yards. Cole Kmet, you guys probably drafted him like maybe in the 10th or 11th round if you're doing like a brand new redraft. So not a whole lot of stock there. But if you drafted Loveland like I did, or if you drafted Luther Burden the second or the third like I did, that's going to, I don't know. In a dynasty, you definitely still hold on to them. But if you're drafting in a redraft, are those drop candidates for you, Christian?
Yes. And only just, but and on all both of them really, just because.
Yeah, I mean,
I just don't trust the Bears
not
offense.
viable fantasy,
right?
Yeah.
No, they're not. I would also say that I would immediately be trying to trade away Odunze, unless you're in a dynasty.
Yeah.
Unless if you're in a dynasty, then yeah, maybe keep him, sure. But is he going to have another week like this? Maybe.
Man,
I just don't think it's likely. And can you go out and if you're in a redraft, go get somebody like a Mike Evans for Odunze, right? Maybe, which might be kind of crazy because Baker is being Baker, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that later too.
Yes.
But there's a couple of more consistent names in the end zone that you're going to find from wide receiver that you can go get. Maybe if you want to take a leap of faith and go buy the brand name, go get a Brian Thomas with Odunze after this week. Again, I don't want to do that, right?
Yeah, buy low on those big names with someone who's also kind of like could be in that echelon of names,
Right.
Absolutely. There could be someone who would go for that trade. I could definitely see it. They're scared about Brian Thomas Jr. They're scared about this injury. And Rome Odunze looking like the only bright spot. I could definitely see that, Christian. That's definitely someone you could kick the tires on.
So just be looking at that if you have any Bears players that do well ever, because that place is where fantasy dreams go to die. All right.
That is fair. The Bears, does suck. Anyway, so we'll jump into the next game here. Christian kind of already brought up our next guy. We look at the Rams taking on the Titans in Tennessee, winning 33-19. This is another one of those games where the score doesn't really say the whole story. Stafford looked good. Everyone, was worried about this shoulder injury. He looks good after week 1, week 2, so it's something we're just going to keep an eye on. But he finished, 23 completions for 298 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. And Devontae Adams coming in with 6 receptions for 106 yards and 1 touchdown, but finished with 13 targets. I mean, Matthew Stafford statistically looks like he loves him. He is looking for this man. And that's something that you want to see. And it doesn't seem to take away from what Puka Nacua is doing on his own. 8 for 9, 8 receptions on 9 targets, 91 yards, and a massive 45-yard touchdown carry that he had to open up the game. So Puka Nacua, this isn't affecting his stock at all. If anything, it kind of increases it. It's similar to what the Rams already had last year with Cooper Kupp, and now Devontae Adams is kind of filling that role. So both these guys off of a game like this give you confidence that they can both do well in the system and that they actually help each other more than hurt each other. But other than that, Kyren Williams, he had a solid game if you were watching, but not great fantasy-wise. He had a ton of work, 17 carries for 66 yards and 2 catches. But Blake Corum actually, I think, maybe finished better than him off of only 5 carries, 44 yards, and a touchdown. Wasn't a great game for Kyren, especially since y'all drafted him and probably the second round, maybe early thirds. Not really what you want to see with Kyren Williams there, but I'm not too worried. I just kind of think with the way the game was going, the air game was working and you kind of didn't really need to run the ball a whole lot. So that's what I think about the Rams. What did you think about the Rams side of the ball?
I like everybody on the Rams side of the ball. You mentioned this earlier. I think it all comes down to how long Matthew Stafford stays upright. I think that the wide receivers prop fantasy production slowed down a tiny bit if he gets hurt, but not a ton because Jimmy Garoppolo's proven to be in the right system, a quarterback that can lead to fantasy production for your wide receivers, right? So I wouldn't be concerned even if Matthew Stafford does go down. They probably lean on Kyren a little bit more and Blake Corum a little bit more in the run game if that does take place. But again, as long as Matthew Stafford's slinging it, you're going to be starting him. At least I would be, right? Those wide receivers. Absolutely. So, yeah, nothing too out of the ordinary with the Rams. I would just say if you got him, you got him. And don't get rid of them for right now,
Don't
right?
get rid of them. Um, and then we look at the other side of the ball, and really the only good thing was Cam Ward having his first NFL touchdown pass. Honestly, besides that, there was not a whole lot of other good things. It does seem like he likes the other rookie. I'm going to say this name wrong, but Iomanor.
I think that's right.
He's the
Pretty
other
close.
rookie that the Titans picked up. And he finished on 4 receptions for 56 yards and a touchdown. So not a bad fantasy performance. And it would kind of make sense. They're both rookies coming into the system together. So like he might look for him a little bit more. Calvin Ridley, though, if you guys drafted Calvin Ridley, which I think Christian, you did in a couple of leagues, if I'm not wrong, or at least you were high on him. He finished the game with 3 receptions for 57 yards. How are you feeling about Calvin Ridley going forward into the season?
Yeah, I think the first game is a healthy wash because they're playing against arguably somebody who's supposed to be the best defense at the time in the Broncos, right? So there
Mhm.
was always the expectation that Calvin Ridley was going to have a slow start. Second game was way more disappointing to come around and see, like, okay, they're playing a Rams team and 3 receptions on for 57 yards isn't great. But I'm looking at how much he's being targeted by the rookie quarterback. 8 targets the first game, 6 targets the next game. Maybe some targets start to slow down a little bit because he's kind of redeveloping a drop issue. Calvin Ridley is, right? And some big time moments too. So that's kind of disappointing to see. But I think as the schedule goes on, I would have some confidence in that he's still getting volume. And if you look from a talent perspective, sure, could this rookie eventually outperform him that nobody knew about prior to the season starting? Sure. I don't think that's likely because I think Calvin Ridley still carries a lot of talent. So if he can reduce the drops, here's the other thing that I was gonna so let me answer the question first. I'm holding Calvin Ridley. I'm buying him from people that are trying to sell right now just because I do think the season starts to get a little bit easier because the Rams and the Broncos are a tough 2 games to start, especially when you're trying to develop a relationship with your rookie quarterback, right?
For sure.
So and that was the other thing, in dynasty leagues especially, I'm gonna try to buy Cam Ward. And if he's not stashed away on a team, I'm picking him up off the waiver wires just because he's the real deal. He's the Titans are terrible. Like they're not a good team, and he's kept them in 2 games, like pretty close to the very end, where they
Yeah.
shouldn't have been close, right?
Right.
So again, the statistics aren't there. You're going to look at his passing statistics and say like, that doesn't look good, doesn't look efficient. But if you take away all the drops and you give him an actual run game, even though Tony Pollard had decent statistics this past game, you give him an actual run game, Cam Ward's going to be pretty good. So I would be stashing Cam Ward in your dynasty leagues too.
Yeah, I think Cam Ward is an easy dynasty stash for sure. Like you said, this is going to come together too. It's just going to take some time. And then any of these other names you playing, Chuga Okonkwo finished the game, 4 receptions for 35 yards. Tyler Lockett, 2 receptions for 9 yards. And then Tony Pollard, he had a ton of touches, definitely 20 carries, but only for 92 yards. I'm It was definitely more efficient like during the game rather than like fantasy. Are any of these guys starting for you flex spots, or are you kind of just maybe benching them for a little bit?
All the other names, uh, especially in 10-person leagues, I'm probably just keeping him as a bench spot. I think Chig has an opportunity to have some success later, especially as he develops his relationship because he's being targeted. It's not like he's not being looked at. The only problem I have with them is that the rookie tight end Gunnar Helm is from Texas actually looks decent, and he's getting some target share there as well. So does that start to pick up? So I don't know. I think with the Titans offense, if it's not Calvin Ridley and it's not Cam Ward, I'm probably not touching them. Not even Tony Pollard. I would sell Tony Pollard after this game because people are forgetting about Tajay Spears. As soon as he comes back, he was projected to be the starter this year. So I think that immediately, I mean, maybe one ramp up game, but almost immediately they start going back to at least a split, if
In the
not taking
backfield
over
for sure.
yeah. So yeah, I'm pretty much benching everybody else.
Yeah, no, and that's fair. Just until these guys kind of get it going a little bit more. But let's talk about a game where this was basically the battle of the running backs. And I did not anticipate this game to be the battle of the running backs. I anticipated the next game we'll talk about to be the battle of the running backs. This game, outstanding for these two guys. We had the Patriots taking on the Dolphins in Miami and holding them off 33-27. My boy, Drake May, getting it done. 19 completions on 23 attempts for 230 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then getting it done on the ground as well, 10 carries for 31 yards and a touchdown. That is why you draft Drake May, because he's going to get you that rushing benefit, that rushing upside. But let's talk about Ramondre Stevenson, Mr. Disrespected. We came into this talking only about Travion Henderson and not even mentioning Ramondre Stevenson. And he said, "Did you forget about me? Did you forget about what I am and what I can do?" He finished the game 11 carries for 54 yards and 5 for 5 receptions for 88 yards. This man was getting it done. He was everywhere. And Travion Henderson, nah, 3 carries for 10 yards, 2 receptions for 30 yards. He outpaced him bad, 16 to 5 touches. And this is someone that we were coming into the league and saying, like, well, Travion Henderson, he had that giant kickoff return in preseason, looked great. Everyone, if you're looking on TikTok, all these people were telling you to draft Travion Henderson. We kind of fell into the trap a little bit over here too. Are you panicking on Travion Henderson now?
Good question. Excuse me, I've seen a
Or,
couple
or do
people.
you think it was just more of like the game script, like the way it was going? They needed the bigger back. They went to Mr. Reliable, someone who's been with the team for a while instead of the rookie.
No,
Travion Henderson, he is a little small.
Yeah, I would say yes and no to that. I would say that the way Mike, help me out here.
Mike
How do you
Vrabel.
Vrabel? Is that how you say his name? I feel like that's not right. Anyway, it feels weird coming out of my mouth. I'm just gonna say MV, right? Because
There you go, Mike Vrabel with the R. The R is before.
Is it Vrabel or
Yeah,
anyway, we're gonna get roasted for that. At least I am. But I look at he's typically somebody who likes to trust the veterans first if they're producing, and it looks like that Stevenson is trying to keep his job. That's how he's playing. Like he's playing to keep his job, right? And he's producing, right? I know that of course he's playing to keep his job, but he's actually producing that way too. So I am a little bit nervous about Henderson. I have
Mm-hmm.
him in one of my leagues. All the hype, right? Everybody was wanting a piece of him.
I do as well, yeah.
We drafted him early. If you did draft him, you drafted him way earlier than Ramondre Stevenson got drafted. That's for sure in most leagues. So I am nervous just because of how early we had to spend a pick on Travion Henderson. And people are comparing him to, well, Jahmyr Gibbs didn't score his first NFL touchdown until, week 4 when he was a rookie. Yeah, but Jahmyr Gibbs was, in my opinion, they're not the same player, him and Henderson. Like Jahmyr Gibbs might go down if he stays healthy as a top 10 running back of all time because of how shifty he is. Like he can do it all, right?
He can.
We don't know that from Henderson just yet, which I think is the scary part. And he, outside of having a preseason kick return for a touchdown, which was beautiful, hasn't really showed that explosiveness just yet. So
No, he hasn't.
I am pretty concerned about that, actually. What about yourself?
Yeah, I have him in Dynasty, so thankfully I'm not like super panic meter. But if I had him in a redraft and I took him early, I would definitely be. I don't know. I don't even know if anyone would really trade for him now because it's not like you can say, "Oh, he did this last season." It's, hey, this guy's a rookie and now he's getting outplayed by Ramondre Stevenson. So I'm not. I wouldn't want to lose too much value on it. I would probably just hold him. Maybe not start him. Well, we'll just have to kind of see though. It's definitely one of those wait and see, because he is so young and he is a rookie, but not looking great right now. And then, are you playing any of these other guys? Stephon Diggs, 4 receptions for 32 yards. Austin Hooper, 3 receptions for 38, and Kayshon Boutte, 1 reception, but that's all he needed because he got a 16-yard touchdown from that. Any of those other wide receivers for the Patriots you playing at all?
Not, no.
Yeah.
If Diggs in a flex spot, if you have to, but
Yeah,
I'm
maybe.
trying not to touch that. Right.
I agree. Let's jump to the other side of the ball. Tua actually woke up and wanted to play week 2. So we like that because he has great players on his team that you guys need to perform. So we need Tua to do his job. And he did his job this game. 315 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Devon Achane doing all the work. This is why you drafted him where you did. 11 carries, 30 yards, wasn't really getting it done on the ground, but in the air, 8 receptions for 92 yards and a touchdown. That's why you draft him, because he's got great hands. He just needs the ball in his hands, and that's all he needs. And you get him out in open space, this is what he does. So Devon Achane looking like a stud. Tyreek Hill, kind of messed me up last week, but this week comes in strong. 6 receptions, 109 yards, and Jalen Waddle, 5 receptions for 68 and a tutty. So both of those guys definitely redeemed themselves from the week 1 blowout that Indianapolis somehow blew them out. But Indianapolis looks good too. We'll talk about them also. So how do you think about? Do you feel better about having any of those Miami Dolphins on your teams? Are you looking to sell them high maybe, or you think this is something that they can do again later?
I feel really good on the talent. Tyreek Hill, I have in one league, I have both of them right on my roster in one league, and I think in a couple leagues, I still have a couple shares of both of them. The talent's not what I don't think anybody was concerned about when it comes to Waddle and Hill, right? It was the quarterback play and it was the off the field stuff, specifically with Tyreek Hill. I'm not gonna sell high for either of them, though. I think in my head, here's how it plays out. Unless something extreme happens and Tyreek Hill gets banned from the NFL and is not allowed to play, I don't care if he gets traded. I think the 2 places he's talked about getting traded to are Pittsburgh and Kansas City currently. Either of those trades take place, he's going to be just fine, right?
Oh yeah.
And if he stays where he is currently, outside of Tua seeing ghost occasionally, which stinks because, I mean, poor guy, right? But he saw that he can produce, right? This is one of those get right games. Jalen Waddle, again, if Tyreek Hill gets traded, he's the true number 1 there, right? So it's better so I think almost in any scenario, unless you're truly concerned about injuries for Waddle because they've popped up from time to time, I'd be buying those wide receivers. And again, unless the extreme happens and Tyreek Hill gets banned from the NFL this year, which I don't think is going to happen, but who knows, then I think you're fine. The thing that I think is the worst case scenario that I used to think was the best, if Tua gets hurt, right, or they trade him, because let's just say they get demolished by the Bills this Thursday, and they fire Mike McDaniels. If that takes place and either McDaniels gets fired or Tua gets hurt, that's where I think you run into your problems, because McDaniel funnels targets for his most explosive players. We don't know if a new coach is going to trust an offensive coordinator, and they're not going to do that. That's a scary scenario. And then if Tua gets hurt, as much as I like Ewers to throw the ball down the field, I just don't think he's gonna. I don't think he's gonna be able to understand such a complex system very quickly.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I mean, we said it after week 1. I mean, Mike McDaniels, he's in the hot seat for sure. He might be in the hottest seat for the coaches this year. So, yeah, if that implodes, then yeah, we'd be saying different things about those guys. But for now, I think you made very valid points on each one of those guys. And let's jump into this next game. The 49ers taking on the Saints in New Orleans. 49ers coming out with a W. Your boy Mac Jones stepping up for injured Brock Purdy. Christian had texted. Christian's been on a streak. We got to start doing like a streak count for Christian. He said if Mac Jones gets the start in San Francisco, he could beat out Brock Purdy. And if he keeps playing like this, and there's no George Kittle, I mean, when Brock Purdy, they could just be like, oh yeah, take an extra week off. Make sure you're good when you come back. Make sure you're good when you come back. We're fine. But Mac Jones stepping in, looking solid. 26 completions on 39 attempts, so he was slinging it. 279 yards on 3 touchdowns. Looked great. And you give him a player like Christian McCaffrey, Mac Jones is going to get it done. So McCaffrey had 19 total touches, 13 carries for 55 yards. 6 receptions for 52 yards and a touchdown. And if there were any worries about Brian Robinson coming into the system, he out-touched him all the way. Only had 6 carries for 20 yards and 1 reception. So McCaffrey is still a dude, and this is why you drafted him. Hope you weren't scared and you listened to Christian to draft him in the first round, because this is what he does when he's healthy. Juwan Jennings had 10 targets, 5 receptions for 89 yards and a touchdown. Looks like Mac Jones really, really likes Juwan Jennings, which kind of sucks if you have Ricky Pearsall, because we saw Ricky Pearsall was probably going to be the wide receiver one in like a Brock Purdy system, but maybe now not so much. He still finished with 4 catches for 56 yards, but this quarterback change is definitely going to take some getting used to. But Juwan Jennings looked like a stud out there. And then just because they are important in this system, I'm gonna mess up their name, but Tungus and Luke Farrell, they split the work almost evenly for George Kittle. So if you're missing George Kittle still, both of these guys combined for, it was 4 receptions and 31 yards for one of them, and then Farrell is the one that had the touchdown. So he had 2 catches for 15 yards and a touchdown. So doesn't really look like either one of these guys you could maybe start in place for George Kittle. They're probably just going to split the work. But yeah, 49ers looked great. I had picked the Saints to win this game because I wasn't sure how Mac Jones would look in his first game. But what are your thoughts, Christian?
Yeah, I've been a Jones truther, as you know, since he came out of Alabama. And the first season,
Christian's Bama boys, his Bama boys.
That's right. I'm long-time Nick Saban follower, if you will. But Mac Jones, when his first season with the Patriots, when they had a good run game, when they had a good offensive coordinator, when they had a good offensive line, he can produce in a good system. He is not your Patrick Mahomes. He is not your Josh Allen. He's not your Lamar Jackson. He's not going to make a team that's atrocious, a terrible competitive, right? That's not what Mac Jones is there to do. But in a system where he needs to make the proper checks, and you give him time, he's proven. He won a Heisman doing that, right? He won a national championship doing that, and he did it his first season in New England. He was very efficient if you go back and look at his stats. So this game didn't surprise me at all, especially because the 49ers wanted Mac Jones. They just didn't trade up for him to go get him, but they wanted Mac Jones in the draft, which is why Kyle Shanahan went out and picked him up when essentially every other team had abandoned him. And I really do think this could create some quarterback controversy. I know people are shooting that down across like different sports avenues or outlets right now. They're like, no, Brock Purdy's the guy. They just paid him, which makes perfect sense. But if Mac Jones has a couple more games like this, these aren't backup numbers. And if you look at Brock Purdy when Kittle's hurt, it's not pretty typically. And Mac Jones was extremely efficient. And yes, the Saints aren't good. They're not a great team, but the Saints defense is not a joke. Right. And you can look at that in their week 1 too. They still have really talented players on the defensive side of the football. It's really just their offense that's in question. So I don't know. I look at this and I'm really excited about Mac Jones being here. I think it's I think he makes it a competition, especially if he produces like this pretty consistently. If he has 2 or 3 more 3-touchdown games and keeps the interception column clean, I think Kyle Shanahan might ride out the hot hand at that point. As far as receivers, though, you mentioned Juwan Jennings, big body wide receiver. That's what Mac Jones is used to. That's what he likes. So I'm not surprised that he throws to him more. Ricky Pearsall still getting attention. So I wouldn't freak out too much because I think that relationship continues to develop. Keep in mind that like Mac Jones is still learning the system. He's only been in the system for a few months, really. The person I would be a little bit concerned on, and I might buy extremely low on because he might even be on some waiver wires, is Kendrick Bourne. You have to remember that Kendrick Bourne was Mac Jones' leading target when he was in New England. And
that's right. They were both in New England.
Maybe that's why Kyle Shanahan went to go get him. I don't know. It just seems like maybe that's too good to be purely coincidence, right? So I don't know. I'm excited about this 49ers offense. I think if you're a 49ers fan, I'd be excited about it too, just because if you protect Mac Jones, he's going to sling the ball for you for sure.
Yeah. No, he looked super comfortable out there. I mean, yeah, he just kind of picked up where he's left off. And then jumping to the other side, Spencer Rattler didn't actually
What a
have a terrible
pick.
fantasy game. Didn't actually have it. Didn't actually have like a terrible outing. The game was close. 25 completions on 34 attempts. 3 touchdowns. You know, not terrible. He was definitely slinging it. Alvin Kamara had 27 total touches. So this is what I meant earlier when this was the true running back battle. McCaffrey versus Kamara. I mean, these guys, they get the ball, man. 27 touches, had 21 carries for 99 yards, 6 receptions for 21 yards. So Kamara was getting you your points. I think a great sign, or maybe a good sign, in this game was seeing Chris Olave actually having, a decent outing. I'm not saying it was a Malik Neighbors type outing, but he had 10 targets, 6 receptions for 54 yards. I think that's kind of hopefully if you drafted Chris Olave as late as you did, maybe in like the 8th, 9th round, because he was dropping a lot. There's just so much uncertainty, giving his concussion history. This is at least a good sign that you can breathe. Chris Olave is at least good for now and should make you feel better. And then Shaheed, 4 receptions for 52 yards and a touchdown. He's always kind of like that long ball flex play, so he had a good game. But I think the true star of the show, besides Kamara, for this Saints team is Juwan Johnson. He had 5 receptions on 9 targets for 49 yards and a touchdown. And that touchdown he had was not an easy grab. He snagged that. And so I just think, like, as the weeks go on, Juwan Johnson is someone who isn't like the most exciting name, but you could possibly see him in maybe that top 5 tight end finishes at least a few times during this year. What do you think, Christian?
I think that's 100% correct. I'm a little tiny bit nervous what happens when Taysom Hill gets healthy, just because that guy just wrecks fantasy football every time he's healthy, right? So we'll see. But I think the thing I like about the Saints, and I want to be a buyer of on their offense in some spaces, I do have some Kamara shares in a couple of different leagues. But the thing I want to be a buyer of is I forgot that Kellen Moore is that dude when he's calling plays. They've been
Mm-hmm.
competitive in the first 2 games. He chose Spencer Rattler to be the starter for a reason because he believes in his talent slightly more than the quarterback that they drafted way earlier than he should have been drafted, right, in this previous draft. So they like what they see. I made that silly noise prior to that, but he had an excellent game against a pretty decent defense, right, in the 49ers. So and we're seeing it. Kellen Moore is gonna target people that can produce, right? All the targets for Chris Olave, all the targets for Jawan Johnson, and then even sprinkling some Rashid Shaheed in there. So I'd be a buyer of Jawan Johnson if he's still in the waiver wire. If he's not, then I would try to see if you can get him low for somebody who maybe had a bigger brand name at that spot. Like Evan Ingram, who just hasn't produced with the Broncos, but has maybe that hope factor that he will, right? But yeah, I like what you said about Chris Olave too. He seems to be like that safety blanket in the slot, right? So like
Yes.
go get him.
Yes, as long as he can stay healthy, I think he
Right.
can mean a lot to this team still. So it was a good sign. If you've drafted him, I'm glad you probably feel better. But let's jump into this Bills Jets game, or maybe we should just call it the James Cook show, because that's all it was. If you had any other Bills player that week, you went from having a massive, massive shootout with the Ravens in week 1 to kind of the only one who did anything was James Cook. It was super unfortunate. But again, that was kind of just the game script. He was absolutely dominating. Josh Allen, he did what he could do, 14 completions for 148 yards. He kind of saved you. He had 6 carries for 59, so he got a little bit of that back. But this was a really technically a bad week for Josh Allen fantasy wise. But he just didn't need to do anything. James Cook, let him cook. This guy was a freak. There's a lot of questions coming in. He was sitting out for a contract, not practicing. People were saying, "Oh, well, once they sign him, he doesn't get a whole lot of goal line work." Brother, he doesn't need goal line work. Just give him the ball. 21 carries, 132 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had a crazy run. I mean, he was juking left and right. He looked so good out there. It kind of made me sad that maybe I listened to too much of the haters and I didn't take a shot on James Cook because I definitely could have. I think in our draft at some point. But kudos to you if you took a shot on him. You didn't listen to the haters, but really, it was just James Cook. Quiet day for all the other wide receivers and tight ends. Palmer finished with 2 catches for 47. Kincaid, 4 catches for 37. Elijah Moore had a reception for 31 and a rushing touchdown. Then Keon Coleman, being the wide receiver one, only 3 catches for 26. Just an all around quiet day. But there's nothing you can do about that in fantasy football when a team is just absolutely dominating the run game and they're just simply outplaying the Jets. I mean, it was just, that is what it is.
Yeah, and I think with Joe Brady uh, calling the plays there in Buffalo, something that they talked about in the first game of the season against that super crazy offensive game against the Ravens, he doesn't want to be in shootouts. Even though he knows he has Superman as his quarterback, he wants to establish the run. So you mentioned it there, and they were able to do that and do it early and often. This is how he wants to play. He wants to play to where Josh Allen is just effective. He's using his feet a little bit, but he doesn't have to put on the Superman cape, mainly because, yeah, it's great to score a lot of points, but they know they have problems on the defensive side of the football. Now, this game was against the Jets, who looked great offensively the first game of the season. However, they were playing a Pittsburgh defense that's not the same as they used to, so seemingly, because Sam Darnold just lit him up too, right, after seeing Ghost in week one. So I don't know. I look at this and I say that if you have some of these Buffalo Bill players, I'm not trading Josh Allen, no, because he's going to have his weeks where he wins you leagues, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if I want to touch any of these wide receivers, even in Dynasty. I mean, is it going to be one week they have 30 and the next week they have 3? That just
Right.
doesn't seem worth it, especially if you're
Right.
in a 10-person league. So I don't know. How do you feel about that?
No, I completely agree. It's kind of like, Keon Coleman, he's gonna be their wide receiver one. Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox, they kind of split that tight end work. So I don't know, Josh Allen, he's kind of moving in that Patrick Mahomes direction of like last year where they win these games so dominantly, or maybe not, they don't look for your fantasy team, right? They don't care about your fantasy team. They're going to win the game, and that's what's important. They're going to finish with 1 touchdown passing, and the team is just going to do well. So exactly, it's like it's sometimes great teams in real life don't translate to great fantasy teams because they just function completely differently. So yeah, if you have any of these guys, I'm sorry, it sounds like it could be a long year of just inconsistency, and it sucks in fantasy, but in real life, if you're a Bills fan, you're super excited. That game was great. You completely dominated them. The other side of the ball, man, I put the Jeffs. I typed in Jets offense non-existent, and I typed in offense in capital OFF because it was off. It was 0. Fields unfortunately suffered an injury, and he did not look like Fields of week 1. He landed, kind of hit the back of his head from a sack from Joey Bosa. But just atrocious. 3 for 11, 27 yards. He had 5 carries for 49, but I mean, it was non-existent. And Brees Hall had a great week 1 and coming in here, 10 carries, 29 yards. Garrett Wilson somehow was salvageable, 4 receptions for 50. I mean, this team is a big yikes now. And
Right.
if Fields is going to be out for more than 1 week, it's going to be Tyrod Taylor. So what are you doing with your Jets players, Christian? What are you doing if you have Brees Hall, if you have Garrett Wilson? Are you nervous now? Like, I mean, I think I am, but what are you?
Thankfully, because of how discounted Garrett Wilson was this year, I'm not worried about him because I think even with Tyrod Taylor, he's going to get volume, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he might not get 100 plus yards a game and 2 touchdowns, but is he going to get 7 to 12 targets a game? Even if Tyrod Taylor's playing, probably, right? Um, and so I'm not worried about him for volume upside. Brees Hall, I'm not terribly concerned about because even though it was a terrible game and the game script just kind of got away from them, nobody was competing for carries. Like
Right.
it was Brees Hall's backfield, right? Out of 21 carries, he had 10, and that makes it seem like it was a split, but Justin Fields and Tyrod Taylor made up for 8 from the quarterbacks. So I mean, it's like, okay, 18 of the 21 carries either came from the quarterbacks or the number one running back, right? So
sure.
I'm not concerned about that. I think he's the most explosive back in their backfield. He's the best receiving back in their backfield. So he is the utility knife for them. I just think that you're going to have weeks like this, much like on the other side. You're going to have weeks where no Buffalo Bills wide receiver is relevant when they can run the ball. If the Jets get behind early, turn out the lights if you have Brees Hall.
Yep.
Like you're gonna have 3 points, right? From Brees Hall just because they're gonna go away from the run game and the pass game's gonna be inefficient. So it's just gonna be anytime that the Jets fall into this game script, it's not gonna look pretty.
Right. You might have to start looking at the Jets matchups for future games just to see, like, is this a game that I think that they can even compete in,
Right.
because you can't just like start them and forget them. You're going to have to actually analyze like a little bit. Who are they playing? Is it at home? Things like that. So, um, but let's jump into another one. We had the Browns taking on the Ravens in Baltimore. And this was just another beatdown, to be honest. Kind of came alive towards the end, but just a slaughter. 41-17. Lamar Jackson, getting it done in the air, not even running. 19 completions, 225 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He did have 2 carries, but it was just for 13 yards. Flowers, although he did not get a touchdown in this touchdown parade, he did have 7 receptions for 75 yards, so still did somewhat decent for you. I think the problem was, for fantasy wise, at least not if you're a Baltimore fan, was there was a lot of touchdowns. You guys just didn't have any of these guys. And if you had these guys in your lineup, you should be running the show because you must be insane. DeAndre Hopkins, 2 receptions for 64 yards and a touchdown. He might have been the only one that you actually did maybe play in your flex, but the other guys, you you don't even I didn't even type their names down because they're probably not going to do this again. But
Mm-mm.
other than that, a lot of touchdowns, not a whole lot of points for your players. And then Derrick Henry, man, that was just sad to see. 11 carries. He had some work, but only 23 yards. And then Mark Andrews, I mean, I think it's just a ghost out there, 1 reception for 2. What are you doing with Mark Andrews? I'm not so much asking the question about Derrick Henry. I think those games, they exist like that, just kind of just one of those things, they just don't get the run game going. Maybe you don't break off a big run. And you also didn't need to. You were dominating in the air. It's another game script kind of deal. So, but what do you do with Mark Andrews? And then if you have any input on Derrick Henry.
Yeah, with Mark Andrews, I'm getting close to the area of dropping him. I'm not going to drop him because
Yeah.
of how high you drafted him in fantasy leagues more often than not, but you're getting close to that just because in a 4 touchdown party to only have 2 or what? Let's see here, 1 reception
One
on a
reception, 3
day where
targets.
Lamar Jackson throws 4 touchdowns is kind of crazy. Now, granted, some of those like the D Hop touchdown was not like in the red zone. That was just a big bomb, right? So maybe the games group gets a little bit better, but I wasn't a huge fan of Mark Andrews going into the season, so I'm not gonna carry out much hope for him. I think you're gonna have a mediocre season at tight end here if you keep Mark Andrews. I'd be trying to sell the brand name for tight ends that maybe just don't have the brand name where someone's like, oh man, Mark Andrews is going to look so good next to my other wide receivers. Just seeing the name, go see if you can go get that trade. But I'm trying to move on from him. And like you said, Derrick Henry, he's going to have these games, but then next game he's going to have like 4 touchdowns and 300 yards, so it's going to be okay. All right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a what you expect from the Ravens, outside of Dak Prescott being my guy and saying that he would compete for the MVP. If you remember at the very beginning of the league, I said that this was Lamar Jackson's year to win MVP. I think he got cheated out of an MVP from the NFL last year, and Josh Allen, who was not nearly as statistically efficient as he was. So I have no idea why he won it. But yeah, Lamar Jackson should have won it last year, and he'll probably win the MVP again this year.
Yeah, he's setting up for it. I mean, dude has looked amazing so far in weeks 1 and 2. Um, and then if we go to the other side of the ball, Joe Flacco, honestly, not a terrible, like, the way the stats look, they could have done more. Definitely threw the ball a ton, had 45 attempts, 25 completions, 199 yards, a touchdown and an interception, and even in garbage time, Dylan Gabriel got to get out there and kind of, get some dirt on his uniform. So that was good to see. But Jerry Jeudy, 4 receptions on 8 targets for 51 yards, in looking solid again, 5 for 5 receptions on 48 yards. Njoku, 4 receptions, 40 yards. Tillman with the only touchdown of the bunch, 2 receptions. He did have 7 targets, so he was looking for him, 22 yards and a touchdown. These receivers wise, I really thought this game was going to be closer because I knew Joe Flacco was going to sling it, and he did because I knew they were going to be playing from behind. They just couldn't really get the connections going. However, something that's important to note in this game was uh, this might be Quinshon Judkins' backfield. He had 10 carries for 61 yards, 3 receptions for 10. And he outpaced Ford and Dylan Sampson after not even playing in week 1. Ford had 6 carries for 31 yards. He was definitely more involved in passing game though. He had 5 receptions on 6 targets for 23 yards. And then Dylan Sampson really couldn't get anything going on the ground, but he did get 3 catches for 13 yards and a touchdown. So the way it was split was Judkins 13 touches, Ford 11, and 7 for Dylan Sampson. So to me, this looks like it could be Quinshon Judkins' backfield in the future as the season goes on. But right now, the amount of volume that's being spread amongst 3 guys, I don't know if you can play any of them. And that's just because of the uncertainty of all the split. But what do you think with these 3 guys?
Yeah, I think if you're in a standard redraft league, you're exactly right. You're not going to want to have any of these guys as your starting running backs. But you're gonna want to stash in a redraft Judkins, and if you have a dynasty, you're gonna want to go after him hard. I'll just be forthcoming. I've gone after Judkins and another player aggressively in the dynasty league that we're in, very aggressively, and
I've
that
heard
league
some
mate
stories.
is just being stubborn. Right. I have offered packages that would be embarrassing for me like you guys
Oh
would all
no.
roast me for but Judkins is him. This guy missed practically all of training camp, comes in week 2 and averages 6.1 yards a carry and makes everybody else look terrible. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's around him against a defense that's, even though they got lit up by Josh Allen Superman himself, like that's not terrible.
Right.
So I don't know. I looking at this is definitely Judkins' backfield. I think there is going to be a split between Ford and Sampson a little bit, like here and there. But as the season progresses, this is the first true week that he plays. What does it look like in week 7 if he's healthy? I think the
Right.
backfield's his, right? At least for the carries, right? So I'd be buying Judkins where you could, stashing him in redraft, and then buying him in dynasty for sure, and unloading the boat for him. But another person that I kind of unloaded the boat for, which you saw in one of our leagues that I want to talk about, is Fannin Jr. Right? I
Mm-hmm.
spent, I think, 60% of my fab on him. Right?
My
Um,
goodness.
I know, crazy, right? But going into the season, they were talking about having a 6'4" frame, how he wasn't a true tight end, and that he was built like a big wide receiver, right? He was
Mm-hmm.
built like a DK Metcalf, and through 2 games being a rookie, he's had really consistent target share, right? Over David Njoku, who's apparently the starting tight end over there, right? So I don't know. I'm looking at that and I'm like, I like the upside there, especially in dynasty leagues. There's a reason I spent a ton of fab on him. I essentially emptied out my bank for him early, but that was mainly just because it was like, if we knew about who he was prior to week 1, we would have drafted him, or you would have spent draft capital on him. So I
Yeah.
don't know. I really like that position. If he's still in the waiver wire somehow in your leagues, especially if in dynasty, you go pick him up because he's. I think he was tied for the most receptions besides Jerome Ford, and he had more receptions than the number 1 wide receiver there in Jared Judy. So it's kind of like, go get that guy, right? He's gonna be formidable probably for the rest of the season.
And beyond. Yeah, he's definitely someone that will be in this league for a while. And actually had a coworker telling me that he knew who Fannin was because of I guess Bowling Green had played Texas A&M as he's a big Texas A&M guy, and he said Fannin was destroying them. And I mean it was just, I just wish I knew more ball because I think I missed out on Fannin as well. I
Yep.
mean, if I knew that he was doing that in college, I would have been a lot more higher on him. Either way, that's not here or there. We just got to move forward and try to make a move for Fannin, like what you're doing. So, or you already have him. So, but anyway, we'll jump into the next game. Broncos at Colts. This one ended kind of controversially. It like had a crazy field goal at the end that he missed it. There was a leveraging flag, and then they got to redo it, and the Colts escaped with another win. So Indiana Jones, Mr. Danny Jones, looking crazy this year. 23 completions, 316 yards, a touchdown, and a rushing touchdown. I always want to talk. They're letting this man throw, and I love to see it. I love to see when players leave the Giants and
Yeah.
then they just do amazing things. You know, the Giants just basically hold these players back from being them true selves, and you know he looks great. But this was the Jonathan Taylor show, even with Indiana Jones doing so well. 25 carries, 165 yards, 2 receptions, one for 50 yards, and one for a touchdown. So he popped off. If you had Jonathan Taylor, you probably did well this week too. And then our boy Tyler Warren, baby, he could have
Thank you,
had even
Clay.
a bigger game.
Yeah.
You're welcome. You're welcome. He could have even had a better week. 4 receptions for 79 yards. He had 7 targets. I saw a few of the plays where he kind of got hit as he was catching it. So if he would have came down with those, I think he's getting over 100 yards easy. He's gonna be in the running for top 3, top 4. You know, if you want to include like Fannin in the future, but Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, Tyler Warren, he's gonna be right there. He's gonna be sticking to them like glue. So I love to see it. Love to have our own version of like Brock Bowers. And then Alec Pierce, 4 receptions, 68 yards. Downs, 6 receptions for 51 yards. And then Pittman, 4 for 40. So not terrible, but all around good showing from the Indianapolis players. What did you think, Christian, about the Colts going into week 3? They're 2-0. They look like they're cooking. How are you feeling about these guys on the Colts?
Yeah, I think they're real, right? I think people, you mentioned it, it was a controversial last call
Mm-hmm.
because it's like I saw people all in all these different clips complaining about like, oh, how are you going to call that? Because it's a penalty, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, okay, well, but even if they did, even if they lost that game, even if they didn't call that penalty, you're talking about Daniel Jones, Indiana Jones, excuse me, competing
Mm-hmm.
against, doing this against the Broncos defense. That was the best defense in the league last season, right? And are pretty, and they were consistently targeting Surtain. And yes, he looked like he was a little bit banged up about halfway through the game, but man, they were picking on him like he was a rookie cornerback out there. And so I think in the right system, Daniel Jones has proven that just like Mac Jones from earlier, he can do well in this league. So I think moving forward, the Colts are a very interesting fantasy play for different players that are out there. You've believed in Taylor Warren since the beginning, and I took that belief and drafted him really early, and I thank you for that because I think it's only going to get better
I think
from
so
here.
too.
But we also talked about in some of our sleepers like Michael Pittman. He didn't have a great game this week, but the first week I think he had a fantastic game. I think it was like over
Mm-hmm.
70 receiving yards and a touchdown. This you're gonna have fantasy option here in this wide receiver core when other people and other fantasy podcasts and organizations were telling you no. They like, hey, you weren't going to have any fantasy production here. So be looking for the Colts here moving forward because I really do think that through 2 weeks against a good defense now, not just the Miami Dolphins, that they're going to be for real this season.
Yeah, they blew out the Dolphins, and then they're keeping up with what we said the best defense in last year's football. So they look real. They look nice. And then flipping over to the other side, Bo Nix, solid performance, 22 completions for 206 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. Got a little bit done on the ground, 20 yards. So did okay there. I want to talk about something interesting that we were talking about before you and I started talking about it tonight. J.K. Dobbins. I understand.
Uh,
I'm gonna say this first, and I know you have been trying to do a trade involving R.J. Harvey. Let's get it going. Dobbins, 14 carries, 76 yards and a touchdown, 1 reception. Look, those are great numbers. Looked good. outpaced our boy RJ Harvey 5 carries for 8 yards. Ew. 1 reception for 16. I mean, not even outpaced him, just outperformed him.
Yeah.
And I understand from our other league mate, you're trying to trade away RJ Harvey. Is that correct?
I tried. I took the trade off the table immediately, and he was that
I
other league mate was
But
talking
even
about it.
then, if you remember the trade, I remember hearing it and I was like, I still think RJ Harvey would be better to hold in a dynasty. So the trade I would have probably accepted. But man, I gotta say though, this is not what you want to see from RJ Harvey right now.
No, it's not. And I think that's partly why I wanted to move on. I think from him, Dobbins, yes, the injury history has been horrific. Um, Last year he was a good producer. He's getting another chance this year, and he's only 26 years old.
I know. We
So
forget because
yeah,
of those
yeah.
injuries.
So if he stays healthy, why would they move on from him? And why, so at this point, what Harvey feels like is a really expensive handcuff, is
Super
what he feels
expensive
like.
handcuff.
So, and I think that's why I've kind of looked to possibly trade him in leagues that I have him in. Now, yes, we're in a dynasty league, so you can make the argument that, like, well, what about his future potential down the road? Who knows who the Broncos draft in the future? What if they go get, Love from Notre Dame next season? If he just lands in their lap somehow, and and Sean Payton, who's an offensive mind, is just like, oh, I'm not. I know there's other positions that I could be drafting, but I'm not going to pass up on his talent. Bye RJ Harvey. So
Mhm.
I don't know. I still there's a little bit of belief that he could produce in there, but as I've tried to do in our league, I would say that if you have him, I'd be trying to get in the most you could for him. I don't see that, especially this season. There's a formidable path outside of catastrophic injury that he takes away from J.K. Dobbins' production here.
Exactly, because not only is he a super expensive handcuff in fantasy, he's a super expensive insurance that the team took on J.K. Dobbins. They drafted him as the backup for J.K. Dobbins in case another injury happened. God forbid. You did it in fantasy, and they did it in real life. This is kind of where we're at with J.K. Dobbins. But like Christian pointed out, super young still. Hopefully, he's fine this time around. He looks great. So yeah, for Dobbins' sake, if you took a shot on Dobbins, kudos to you again, and hopefully he keeps it going.
Right.
But yeah, Harvey is a handcuff right now. And then I want to talk about one guy that you need to go get off your waivers tonight. Make sure you put in your bids or your order or whatever it is. Troy Franklin. Now, it's not the most, exciting name. It kind of makes me sad. I don't know why. That name is just not it. But he's it. 8 receptions, 9 targets, 89 yards, and a touchdown. Go get him. He's a rookie. Go get him. He looks like he could be good in this offense. Marvin Mims, kind of tossed in there, 2 receptions for 24 yards and a touchdown, and a quiet day for Cortland Sutton owners. Man, gotta be kind of nervous about that one, but I think you're gonna be fine in the long run. Just a rough outing. 1 reception, 4 targets, 6 yards. Yikes! I typed in yikes because that's what it was. Um, how are you feeling about Troy Franklin, and how are you feeling about Sutton? And then we'll move on to the next game.
Yeah, I'm nervous if I'm a Sutton owner just because you did draft him relatively high, and he wasn't going he shouldn't have been going in the first 3 rounds, but you did draft him relatively high if you have him. So I'd be nervous if I had some Sutton shares, which I don't, thankfully. Um, I'd be looking into Franklin. He was college teammates with your Timothy Bo Nix. So I mean, like they have connection there in the past, right? Which makes sense to why they're kind of picking up where they left off, if you will. And he looks good, right? He's gotten 6 and 9 targets in the first 2 games of the season, and you probably wouldn't expect that to slow down at any point in the year. There's a reason that they got rid of Vele, I think is how you pronounce his name, right?
Yes, Vele.
So they probably said, hey, it's time for Troy Franklin to really step up and have a formidable role in this offense. It's probably why they got rid of Vele, right? Who was a number 2 last year for Bo
Right.
Nix.
Yeah, no, I mean, if this is gonna be the number 2 that's the upgrade from Vele, by all means, man, keep it going. I mean, they look good. Um, so let's jump to the Panthers at the Cardinals. Cardinals getting the W. Uh, and we can fast forward through this game honestly, because truly, if you were watching, it was a slaughter. It was 27-3 at one point until the Panthers kind of conveyed a big, uh, kind of slow comeback that ended with like a big fourth down sack. So Kyler Murray looked decent. 17 completions, 220 yards, one touchdown, one pick, got 32 yards on the ground. Trey McBride, no touchdown again, but solid 6 receptions for 78 yards. A quiet Marvin Harrison Jr. day after having pretty solid week 1. Only 2 receptions on 5 targets for 27 yards. And then James Cook, 11 carries, 34 yards, 1 reception for 18 and a touchdown. But I want to point out, although he outpaced James Conner, Trey Benson, 3 carries for 14 yards and 4 catches for 30 yards. So he didn't do nothing. This team is definitely still keeping him involved, keeping him in the loop. It may not be a split backfield, but they they drafted Trey Benson for this reason, to take over the backfield after James Conner. So they are still including him. They are still making sure he's part of this offense. So are you still holding Benson? And if so, how much longer you think until we see him take over this backfield? I personally don't think it'll happen unless James Conner gets injured. And given his injury history, it could happen. But I think they're probably going to keep Connor until he's got no legs left.
Yeah, there's always going to be a role for James Conner on this offense as long as he's healthy. But you just have to look at the snap percentage from week 1 to week 2. And as a Trey Benson holder and a believer, like, I'm definitely paying attention to that more so than I am to carries. 33% snap share in week 1, 44 in week 2. Right. They're giving him the ball more, whether it's through the air or on the ground. And the games, it wasn't a game script to where it was like, oh, well, that makes sense because they were down, so he was just in the game as a receiving back. No, they were. I don't think they were ever down once in this game, right? So they're trusting him even when they're up big. I think probably by week 6, you've probably seen a 50-50 backfield, and there's going to come a point in time to where people start to recognize that Trey Benson's just a more efficient back. He has a little bit more juice. James Conner probably takes a little bit more of the power role, the Montgomery role to the Gibbs, right?
Yes.
Is kind of what I think is happening here.
I think that's a great comparison. I think, like you said, Trey Benson's going to have the juice. He's going to be the Gibbs in the role, and then James Conner would be the power back. And I think that's what they're slowly trying to get to, and we'll see that shift in power a little bit later in the season. So yeah, I would still be holding Trey Benson for sure. The other side of the ball, Bryce Young actually had a pretty decent fantasy game, and that's kind of because they were down the whole time. So he had to throw 55 times, 35 completions, 328 yards for 3 touchdowns. Those touchdowns didn't come until the fourth quarter, but um, honestly, pretty solid performance from him fantasy wise. And his boy T Mac, Tedero McMillan, solid 6 receptions on 10 targets for 100 yards, broke 100. That's great. Jadavion Sanders, another solid tight end, seven receptions, nine targets for 54 yards. And our boy Hunter Renfro. People disrespect Hunter Renfro. We've seen the TikTok. NFL respects him. NFL players respect him. He's probably the best route runner. And he took some time off. He got healthy, and now he's back. Seven receptions, 9 targets for 48 yards and 2 touchdowns. That is solid. I think Hunter Renfro should be on your waiver wire, and you should be trying to acquire him because his experience and his veteran wide receiver abilities, they're going to be good for Bryce Young. I think it's someone that he could probably start to maybe make into like a security blanket for him. He has T Mac as his wide receiver 1, but Hunter Renfro can play that slot very well. So I think that's a great pickup for Bryce Young, and I think it's going to show. What do you think, Christian?
I completely agree. Yeah, Hunter Renfro is what used to be for Bryce Young, Adam Thielen was, right? So it's almost a direct like safety blanket to the similar type of excellent route runner that they each are, right? So I like Hunter Renfro a lot for the volume of receptions. Tedera's still going to end, who regardless of quarterback is still going to get the air yards, right? We're seeing that he had a ridiculous catch in that game. I don't that didn't count, one-handed grab. If I find it later, I'll send it to you if you haven't seen it. It was
Yeah,
insane.
so
Again,
many.
it didn't count, but it was crazy. So I feel really happy about having him in our dynasty league. But you're right, Jatavion Sanders, 7 receptions, another safety blanket. If he's in a waiver wire, go grab him. He was really good at Texas, and he's picking the steam up here in the NFL for sure.
Yeah, he's going to be a stud. He's only 1 year out of college, so going to be great. And then Hubbard, the game script kind of worked for him in a way. He only had 10 carries for 38 yards, nothing too much on the ground, but then they started utilizing him more in the passing game. Caught 5 passes for 39 yards and a touchdown. So ended up, working in his favor, since he does have he's a good pass catching back. But one name I just want to throw in there because I think he's actually a huge drop candidate if you have him. Xavier Leggett, not involved, just absolutely non-existent. What are you doing if you have Xavier Leggett? And I didn't mean to target you, but I think you do. So that's why I'm wondering. I know we do have a dynasty, but what would you consider in a redraft, and what would you consider in a dynasty?
Yeah, in a redraft, he shouldn't even be on your team, right? At this point in time, on a dynasty, I don't know. I'm still holding out a little bit of hope. I think there's a reason that they let go of Thielen, and I don't think that reason was just Renfro because he's not a long term solution for them. Xavier Leggett is 24 years old, so he's still really young. He had excellent production in South Carolina, and if we look at the target share, 8 and 7 targets. So yeah, he's not getting the receptions just yet, or 1 reception on those 8 targets, 3 receptions on the 7 targets. As much as I want to believe in Bryce Young, I think a part of the problem is Bryce Young's not a formidable quarterback, right?
That's fair. Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm hanging on for hope for Leggett. He's got the intangibles, 6'3", 227-pound wide receiver, played in the SEC. He's kind of proven the ability to get open. Just not what you want to see for quarterback position, I don't think, right now.
Quick toss up. Troy Franklin or Xavier Leggett?
Troy Franklin, yeah. But
Troy
again,
Franklin
better
or Hunter
quarterback.
Renfro?
Troy Franklin.
Fair. Okay. I do think Hunter Renfro is a great pickup though, and it's interesting to see those two guys next to each other. I would lean the Troy Franklin way as well, but I think Hunter Renfro could make a lot of noise, but it's going to come down to Bryce Young, like what you said. And you guys can trust Christian on his opinions of Bryce Young because he is a Bama boy, and if Christian's hard on him, that means it's real. So these last few games, I kind of want to go through a little bit quicker. I don't think we need to spend much time on them. They were
Okay.
relatively boring for the most part. I watched all of them and I did not really enjoy any of them. And even from a fantasy perspective, it was very very like expected almost in a way. But we'll jump into it real quick. Eagles at Chief Super Bowl rematch. Eagles won 20-17. Only thing I got to say to this game right now is they got to ban the tush push. I was all for it. They voted on it. I agreed with the vote. I said that's fine. But after seeing some more videos of it come out, they are lining up in the neutral zone. They are lining up. The guards are over the ball. It's more of like a rugby setup. And I just don't think that either the refs are calling it correctly or we should just be allowing it in the first place. So I think the refs need to start actually monitoring to see where the Eagles' offensive line is lining up. Because if they're going to line up incorrectly, they should be penalized for that. But other than that, Jalen Hurts, very, very average game for that running back, quarterback, whatever you want to call him. 15 completions for 101 yards, 15 rushing yards with a touchdown. Saquon Barkley does what Saquon Barkley does, 22 carries, 88 yards and a touchdown with 2 catches. Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown both had a better performance in week 1, but still not great. Smith, 4 catches for 53 yards. Brown, 5 catches for 27. I don't know if you're panicking on these guys yet. I don't have either of them. I would say I'm probably panicking, and I would maybe even try to buy low on maybe A.J. Brown. But I'll flip that question to you real quick. And then last thing I want to say, Calantera in for Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert, as you know, had a great week 1, had like 7 receptions for 70 yards. Awesome. Calantera is not Dallas Goedert. He had 1 reception for 6. So definitely cannot replace him there. And those they didn't really allocate those receptions elsewhere. Maybe you could say AJ Brown maybe got a little bit more. So, but again, Jalen Hurts. He just doesn't throw the ball as much as often. So what are you doing with those 2 wide receivers?
I'm panicking for AJ Brown. I'm not panicking for Smith just because I think
Is that based on where you drafted them?
where you drafted him. I'm panicking for AJ Brown because he went in the first 2 rounds in most
Yeah,
leagues, right?
insanely tough.
So it's tough to see. I think the tush push should get banned too at that point. I thought it should. I was one of those people who thought it should get banned in the first place. It's never been real football, and if the NFL is going to change the kickoff rules for the safety of players, then they need to change this rule for the safety of players, because even the offensive linemen for Philadelphia talk about how
Yes,
they are in pain
they are
after
hurting.
they don't like running the play, right? So it's not only a penalty every time they do it, um, but it's not good for the player's health either. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, in
That's a great
Philadelphia,
point.
Saquon Barkley, same old, same old. Jalen Hurts doesn't care about the critics. He's truly just there to win, right? As much as so he has crazy fantasy football games, but I think you're gonna have those weeks to where it's like he's just gonna do what his team needs him to do to win, and sometimes it's not gonna look great, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be interesting. But I would be panicking if I had AJ Brown a little bit. I'd be trying to get what I can. Maybe you can do a swap with another struggling player if you believe in Brian Thompson more. Maybe getting that swap a little bit, right? Because it's in a higher pass volume offense. Maybe you could do something like that. Maybe you go out and try to trade AJ Brown for somebody who's suspended and Rasheed Rice, right? And say, hey, here's a number 1, number 2 wide receiver, and try to get something like that for the other side of things. I don't. I would. My panic level is a little bit high for the Philadelphia number 1 wide receiver.
That's fair. And then the other side of the ball, Patrick Mahomes actually had decent fantasy output, 187 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. And then he was getting it done on the ground, though, 66 yards and a touchdown. So I saw that touchdown run, looked solid. He's still got some speed to him. The thing with Mahomes is he doesn't run unless he absolutely has to. And with this offense that they're working with right now, he has to.
Right.
Kind of looks like the old Texas Tech days, if I might
Mm-hmm.
say. It's a little tough. Kelsey had a really costly turnover that listed as Mahomes' interception. It was right at the goal line, went into his hands, bounced into the Eagles' hands. So that was tough, but still finished, 4 receptions, 61 yards. So Kelsey still getting it done. Uh, Hollywood Brown came back down to earth after that first week 1, 5 receptions on 5 targets for 30 yards. And Thornton finishing with 2 receptions for 59 yards and a touchdown. One of them did involve a 49-yard pass, though. Both Hunt and Pacheco, bad. What are you doing with them? Hunt, 31 yards on 8 carries. Pacheco, 22 yards on 10 carries. You can't really say this was a game script game. You can maybe, give credit to just the Eagles' run defense. But, I mean, after week 1 and week 2, this is just not a backfield that I would want any part in. What are you thinking?
No, I don't want any part of those backfields either. And I do have a couple of Pacheco shares. I think that the problem, though, is not the talent. I think the problem is the Chiefs are lost as an organization, which feels really weird because of how good they've been. But the offense doesn't know what it is. The defense had a much better game this game compared to last game, but still feels like it just feels like that teams competing against each other. I think maybe it's just gotten a little bit stale, right? With having the same players around you for all this time and having so much success. So I don't like to say this because of our boy Patrick Mahomes, but I think Kansas City might be on their way to like a self implosion here pretty soon.
It's not
Especially
looking great.
no, so I'd be concerned with almost any fantasy asset that I had there, but especially in the backfield, I'm pretty concerned and trying to move on.
Yeah, it's just not great. Um, let's go a little faster through this Sunday night football game. This was awful.
Atrocious.
I
It
don't
was
know if you
bad.
watched it. It was so
Yeah.
bad. Falcons got the W 22-6 against the Vikings in Minnesota. Pretty much just the Bijan show. Bijan popping off, 22 carries, 143 yards, had 3 receptions for 25. Algier got a lot of work too, 16 carries for 76 yards, and he stole the lone rushing touchdown. And I think it was honestly might have been the only touchdown of the game. I mean, that game was
Hmm.
just awful. Penix really didn't do anything, 135 yards through the air, no touchdown. Drake London, 3 for 4, 49 yards, and Kyle Pitts, 4 for 5 on 37 yards. Let me ask you a quick question. Are you worried about Algier in cutting into Bijan's time, or do you just think he's a solid handcuff? Personally, I think he's fine where he's at. Sure, he's getting a ton of work, but I'm one of those people that thinks like Bijan Robinson, he can't be the lone back. He can't be the rusher all game. He would get too tired. He's kind of too small. He's more of the shifty guy. Algier's more of the power back. I think what they have right now is fine. Those 38 carries for both of them that they split, but this is still Bijan Robinson's backfield. I would not be worried at all. But what are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm not worried at all either. I don't think that they, as much as Atlanta wants to run the ball efficiently, I think this was a weird game script because it was a short week. Drake London was hurt
Drake London was
after,
hurt. Yeah. You could
af-
tell.
yeah. Kyle Pitts has been good, but I don't think either team wanted to pass the ball that much, really. I think
No.
both teams wanted to rely on the run game, just try to walk away with the victory, being beaten up a little bit. So, like you said, kind of a weird game. I'm
It
not
was
worried
awful.
about I'm not worried about Atlanta's high fantasy producers though. I'm not worried about Robinson. I'm not worried about London. I'm not worried about Pitts. I think as long as they're healthy, those three guys are going to be formidable because I think consistently Atlanta's offense will be better than what they were tonight or Sunday night. Um, and the same thing on
Just
Minnesota's side. Justin Jefferson, he's him. Like, yes, the quarterback is atrocious currently, but they're going. I think they're going to start Wentz this week because of an ankle injury, right? Quote unquote. I don't know. I don't think it's an ankle injury that's really that bad. I just think they're ready to move on and stash McCarthy away for later, right? Because the rest of the team is really good. So I think everybody's just getting a little bit tired about how they're not producing.
I think you're absolutely right. JJ McCarthy, he had 2 picks. One of them was way worse than the other. Started seeing ghosts. Had 3 fumbles. Was able to jump on 2 of them though. Like you said, Justin Jefferson, he's him. He still finished the game with 81 yards and 3 catches, so he's still kind of he didn't give you a 0. He still helped you out a little bit. The other names, like you said, they're worrisome if JJ McCarthy were to stay, but you've already kind of clarified that when they bring in Wentz, it should get a little bit better. But Thielen, TJ Hawkinson, 2 for 3 for 26 yards. Hawkinson, 1 for 3 for 12 yards. It's just JJ McCarthy's just not doing a good job. And then Jordan Mason, 9 carries for 30 yards. Aaron Jones, 5 carries for 23. But again, this game was just so over already. It didn't even really those guys couldn't do it if they needed to. They were down the whole game.
No, couldn't agree more. The only person I'd be buying, I would, and he was a part of my trade figure, was Jordan Mason. So we alluded to earlier, like who I was offering away for Harvey. Jordan Mason will be the leader of this backfield. It was going to happen if Aaron Jones stayed healthy, but Jordan Mason just has more juice. That's why they picked him up. They didn't pick him up to be a backup, right? You see that
Yeah.
immediately. Like split's already there. Aaron Jones is kind of shaken up a little bit with injury this past week. If Wentz starts to play 10% better than McCarthy, look out for Jordan Mason to be like a top 15 running back in fantasy football.
Oh yeah. And then this double header Monday night, I was super excited going into it. And then after it happened, I was like, wow, that was awful. It just wasn't great. What my I guess maybe my expectations were just too high from what I had already seen on Sunday. But Bucks getting the win in Houston off of a game-winning Baker touchdown drive that he conveyed, winning 20-19. Baker, solid performance overall, 215 yards in the air, 2 touchdowns, 33 yards rushing. Bucky Irving still dominating the way that he is, 23 touches, 17 carries for 71 yards, and then 6 for 6 receptions for 50 yards. So getting it done in the air, getting it done on the ground looks great. Ricard White, 10 carries for 65 yards and a touchdown. Personally, I'm a Bucky Irving owner. I'm not worried. I've never been worried, but White getting that touchdown, I think was just more like he's going to be like the goal line kind of back. That's just kind of he's a little bit bigger. So Bucky Irving gets all the other touches though. So not too worried, but again, this game was just weird. Felt like it was going to be super high scoring in the beginning and then kind of drifted away into nothingness. Mike Evans, 11 targets, but only 5 catches for 56. And Igbuka, 7 targets caught 4 of them, 29 yards and a touchdown. Still another solid performance from the rookie. Say what you will, I still think that was a pretty solid performance. Bucks got it done. Game was weird. Yeah, it was like 14-7 in the first quarter. I was like, oh yeah, here we go. And then like nothing until the end. And I was like, wow, this is awful.
Yeah, no, I think the big takeaways are, like you're saying, Baker Mayfield looked really good, or even though it wasn't a high scoring game. has the efficient ground productions. Mike Evans is still going to get his target share, even in low scoring games. And again, Ibuka being the bright side, if you're especially in your dynasty leagues, like he looks really good, right?
Mhm.
I think quickly, like on the other side too, CJ Stroud is just bad.
Yeah.
Like, can
I
we,
was
can we, yeah, I mean, I
I
know you were
literally
going to get
typed
there.
in bad.
Yeah. I don't get it. Like, I understand that they have high hopes for him because of one season, but it's terrible, right? He's
Terrible.
not efficient. He's missing wide open people. He has an excellent number one wide receiver, Nico Collins, that he threw to seemingly just like a couple of times, right? Like he
Yeah.
forgot he existed after the first quarter. But I think the biggest spot, which is kind of cool to see, is Nick Chubb still hanging around there. That's
Yeah.
just cool to see, you know.
Yeah.
So I
That
think
was awesome.
that was cool to see him score that touchdown. He looked pretty good, even though it wasn't a crazy big game. He looked.
I told my fiance, because her dad is a big Houston Texans fan, and I told her a little backstory about Nick Chubb, how he's like the quiet guy in the league, but super well liked, super well respected, has had crazy seasons for the Cleveland Browns. So it was nice to see him like do well, the Texans took the shot on him. He was like started on the like running back 4 on the depth chart, and now look at him. I mean, he's still doing chubby things, and I love it. So, well, like you said, CJ Stroud, awful. I don't even know what to say anymore, and having such a good wide receiver like Nico Collins, it's just kind of like I
It's not
missed out on Nico
excusable.
Collins in our draft, and now I'm kind of thankful that I did, and it's because of CJ Stroud. Nico Collins had 9 targets, and I don't think they were all catchable. He only caught 3. I mean, it was just bad. He did get that nice touchdown at the beginning of the game, and so I was like, okay, here we go, Nico Collins game, and then that was it. That was
Mhm.
it. Dalton Schultz looking bad off also, but again, not his fault. 3 receptions, only on 4 targets, 29 yards. This team has already lost 2 tight ends, so it's really Schultz, and then they picked up Harrison Bryant. So if Schultz goes down, this team will just look worse, unfortunately. And then to top it off, to last game that we'll talk about, uh, Chargers getting the win in Las Vegas, 20-9. This game was also hard to watch. But Justin Herbert looked good. 242 yards, 2 touchdowns, 31 yards rushing again, getting it down on his feet. Quentin Johnston was setting up for, I don't even know what. I think he had 0 catches on 3 targets for the whole first half, and then starts off the second half with a 60-yard bomb. And remember that he knew how to play football. Finished the game with 3 receptions for 71 yards and a touchdown. Keenan Allen picking up right where he left off with Justin Herbert in week 1 and week 2, 5 receptions for 61 yards and a touchdown. Looks great. Here's the only downside for me, because I am a Lad McConkey owner. 5 receptions for 48 yards. Not what you want to see for someone that you were drafting as your wide receiver 1. This kind of goes back to what I don't want to tell Christian. He was right. He was nervous to take Lad McConkey. He told me that was probably one of my cons when we were talking about our team, was that, trusting Lad to be that number 1 wide receiver. I'm not worried in a dynasty, but this is one of those things where it could be like everyone's focusing on Ladd. So Johnston's kind of like the deep threat. Allen's more of like the red zone threat, security blanket. So like Ladd's going to get open when he can. I think he will still have big games, but not a great performance. And then Najee Harris, 8 carries for 28 yards, 2 receptions. Amarian Hampton, 8 carries for 24 yards. Almost the exact identical people. Not really what you want to see if you're a Hampton owner, but it is what it is on the run game. But that was the Chargers. What did you think about the Chargers, Christian?
Yeah, the Chargers look for real. So I think any player you have is going to be good, even with a slow start for Lad. Um, I don't think. I mean, as good as Keenan Allen is, and maybe this lasts a season or two, but Lad eventually is going to take the Keenan Allen role, right? Away from Herbert. It's just a question of when. The person that's like kind of concerning is Johnston, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, 3 touchdowns on 14 targets and 150 yards in the first 3 games. Yes, he is the deep shot wide receiver, so it's not really Ladd's targets that he's taken away from. But those big shots, now that he remembered he had hands, right?
Yeah.
After the first couple of season, when you're scoring long touchdowns, that doesn't allow Ladd to do what he's best at, which is inch down the field 10 yards, 10 yards, 10 yards, reception, 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 which is where the fantasy production is. So again, I think long term, like you said, Ladd's going to be an excellent hold, but it's going to be tough, especially if you're in a redraft this league this year. you might look on to move on from him and try to get equal value now while the production's been decent. Just because if Johnston stays healthy and Keenan Allen stays healthy, it's a pretty competitive wide receiver room, right?
Absolutely. It's great for Justin Herbert, bad for Lad McConkey right now. So, but like Christian said, it'll get better. Not wishing injury on anybody, but we know Keenan Allen is older. He has been injured in the past. So if a spot opens up, Lad will be there. But if for right now, it is a bit worrisome. So we do have to kind of keep an eye on it. And then the other side of the ball was just awful. Geno Smith played like old Geno Smith tonight. I mean, 180 yards, 3 interceptions, awful. Ashton Genty, he only had 11 carries for 43 yards and 3 catches. He had one juke that was nasty, but that's all I'll give the rookie. It was kind of a game script thing also. They were down. Nothing was clicking on offense. Kobe Myers led with 6 receptions for 68 yards. That was pretty solid. Brock Bowers did surprisingly play with that knee injury. I didn't think he was going to, but finished with 5 receptions for 38. So at least he didn't goose you, and at least he played, and you didn't have to sub in Michael Mayer or someone else that you had played. So that was at least a plus, but no monster game for Brock Bowers because he wasn't healthy. Other than that, Raiders kind of looks like poo-poo. I'm not going to lie to you.
No, tough way to end it on the Raiders.
Yeah.
Yeah, Geno Smith looked like old Geno, like you said. I think it's a perfect description. I'm not too worried though. I think long term they turn things around. I think Pete Carroll's a good culture guy, and he knows what Geno can do. I think Geno just kind of got in his head this game, and then it's just piled on, right?
Yeah.
But I think
absolutely.
they'll be fine.
But that's gonna wrap up a crazy like week 2 recap along with week 1 a little bit thrown in there. But we're gonna get these videos a little bit more consistently down. Find times to record them for you guys. But sorry that was a little bit long. But we definitely wanted to cover all the games and kind of let y'all know what we're thinking too. But Christian, any final thoughts? And if not, I'll let you sign us out. It's up to you.
Yeah, no, just general, just be looking out to make trades. As Clay's said it earlier, I'm big on trades in fantasy football, and there's a reason. It's a part of the game, right? So if you're not working to make your team better, then don't play fantasy football, right? I mean, I think it's quite that simple. So I don't know, just don't be afraid to take a little bit of risk in fantasy football. That's part of the fun. Go on your gut feelings and your instincts for that, and go spend your fab. Right, if you're in a league that has a fab budget, don't be afraid to spend it. You can't keep it, right? It's not going to roll over. So, but do that, but outside of that, nothing too crazy. I think we're only through week 2, so no big panic.
That's right. But if you guys like what you hear, give us a drop, give us a like, give us a follow. We're on Spotify, YouTube, or we're trying to get on TikTok and Instagram, so we'll let y'all know when those things happen. But thanks for joining us, ladies and gentlemen, and y'all have a good night. Thank you very much.
Laters.